What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fight Night Rising. I'm LemonKiwi. Most importantly, this is Boopasaurus, aka Majors in Allergies. How you feeling today?
I feel awful, as you said. The ragweed getting at me. The ragweed hyper rolling right now and high rolling at the same time. So excuse me for the sniffles that you might hear, but I'm excited for these games because this patch is shaping up to be pretty good so far, Lemon, and I'm so excited to be here casting with you.
Oh yeah, that beat patch is hot off the pan, and on the menu are the following players. We have 8 joining us today, as usual, 4 lobbies, and the 2 returning this week are Jose and Doubtfu. But hey, I always love to feature new talent. Anyone you're excited about?
Yeah, we've seen a couple of these players in passing before. Really excited to see Shining Star on Fight Night. Excited to see Chewy as well. People who have come through in the past but haven't found that same kind of success that Jose has found, who is on their 7th week so far, 8th week, trying to get into their 9th week to get into those double digits, which only one other person has done.
And you know the reason why they're all here, Boop?
The love of the game.
It's all about talking trash to each other, but also some amazing prizes. Here's what all these players are fighting for. Of course, $100 for first, $50 for second, $25 for third and fourth, but you get that re-invite back to next week's fight night if you place in that top 3. And, you know, you were kind of telling me Jose is a bit on a hot streak.
Oh yeah, I think Jose already has a Valentine, and it's Nocturne. We're already, like, super far ahead of it, because this Nocturne player will tell you that they're playing Nocturne. But Lemon, you were telling me that there's a little bit of a little side bet going on here amongst our Nocturne players, huh? There's a little bit of a storyline we must tell our viewers.
Oh yeah, it's all about Sin City, and Fears was one of the players in this lobby who was telling me, okay, really likes AD Flex, but also Assassins, and was specifically telling me that he was watching Jose and taking notes on how to play Assassins, and he's looking to rival Jose and really looking forward, like in a wholesome way, to play against him. And when I was talking to Jose and Fears, like, okay, if you guys are both going to be hogging the Nocturnes, who's the first to cave? It's all about bullying. Everyone is contesting you, right, off that comp. And Fears was like, I'm probably gonna pivot because I don't want to hold, he says, quote, hold hands when it comes to Nocturne. So we're gonna see who's gonna alpha who off of Nocturne.
You know, the funny thing is about Nocturne, right, is sometimes you don't alpha together, sometimes you literally just dig a grave together, and this is the holding hands, right? You know, Nocturne is like, do you know what 6 feet is? Let's get you below the ground about that much. But the good thing that could happen would be if Jose, right, already has, like, the legend of the assassin player, right? Which sounds like a really cool show coming up, I guess. But the why would you go up against someone, right, who is better than you at what you're playing, right? It's like, I'm going to go up against this guy who has defined what being assassin is in Fight Night Rising, has solo assassin won 3 or 4 lobbies, a couple in a row, right? I'm going to go up against that to do what? To let someone else win, maybe? Right? It's a very interesting kind of strategy or thought process you have to kind of think about because of that. Because if you do go after assassins, the only thing you might be helping is the other 6 players in that lobby.
And we're about to jump into our first lobby to find out who's going to be the Nocturne King at the end of the day. Is it still going to be Jose keeping that crown, keeping the historical record of Fight Night Rising of being the PhD, or having the PhD in Nocturne? Or will Fears knock him off his high horse? And what's so funny about watching the way Jose plays is that he doesn't have, like, a Nocturne start. You know, everyone who plays Assassins once in a while, it's like you high roll a Nocturne off of neutrals, or you get, like, the right maybe first item, and you're like, oh, maybe Nocturne can work. But Jose just gets a glove and he's like, I guess I'm going Nocturne. Or he'll have, like, Draconic and then go into Nocturne around, like, stage 4 or something like that. So it doesn't matter what kind of start Jose has, he, like, always goes Assassins and somehow makes it work.
Yeah, and he makes it work because of the, you know, he pilots this like he's been, you know, flying that plane forever, right? It's the only thing he's played in Fight Night in a couple, in a couple weeks. And, I always have a lot of respect for people who can, go 20 out of 20 on Nocturne and play the same comp over and over again because, for some people that monotony can actually cause issues and cause lazy decision making. And that's something that Jose has never fallen into because the early game decision making is pick first on the first carousel, right? You want to get that glove, you want to get that second glove. So what Jose will usually do is, especially if he's not getting contested, is drop to around 50 to 40 HP. And around then, if he hasn't really locked in that Nocturne, at least item-wise, things are going to be a little bit of an issue. But if someone's sharing those units, it could be even harder for him to get there, as it's going to be Nocturne versus the world again for another Fight Night Rising. And no one really countered it until the last lobby of last week with a couple Thornmails. So I'm interested to see if they're going to be able to do it. And, you know, before we get back into the game too, as we are seeing Jose, I think we're going to see some Kayle today as well, Jen.
Oh, Daofu, especially. Last week when we got to study a bit of Daofu was trying to force a lot of Kayle. I think 3 out of the 4 lobbies went Kayle, and it's kind of like a 1st or 8th situation. In lobby 1, 1st place, lobby 2, 7th place. Similar composition, similar items with Kayle, but a lot of people, you know, they might like Kayle, and this meta, especially after the buffs to Kayle, a lot of people are leaning towards Kayle, but the issue is that she is a 5-cost. She's a legendary unit, and you can't really plan on something that is like years and miles away. So it's about how you get to Kayle that really matters.
I mean, so 2 things, right? It's when vanilla ice cream can win a lobby, why not just use vanilla ice cream as opposed to like a 5-star restaurant dessert that like Kayle has, but you're going to get hungry like an hour later, right? Because how many times, just anyone who's played TFT, have you pivoted into Kayle and then immediately gotten 7th or 8th place? You're like, my last carry was better. So the way that Kayle works really is a couple things need to happen. First, I think the entire lobby needs to be pretty slow. So talking about those 2 lobbies that you were referencing with Daofu last week, won the first lobby, and that first lobby was really weak. Like there were like no tier 2 4-cost units at like stage 5-1. It was pretty crazy. That second lobby was a lot faster, and Kayle did a lot worse. So it's all about the tempo of this lobby, and Kayle really wants the slowest games possible, right? They want slow rounds, slow games, and they want to make this go as long as possible because that's where Kayle's going to have the best time. And Jose is going to be totally fine with that because Nocturne, throughout the history of TFT, has been a counter to Kayle. So we'll see what happens. It does say Nocturne only, but it's Nocturne only?
Question mark? Yeah, I mean, I think he's told me that the only way he would like not play Nocturne is if he had like an insane opener for something else. And even in last week when he had a great Draconic opener, he used it as a way to bolster his eco. And I mean, look at what he's doing right now. He's only had 1 unit in, refuses to buy anything up until the last neutral round to get himself to 10 gold. And now doesn't look like he's kind of seeing how many people are pre-leveling. What does this board look like? Having only 2 Hellion is not great. And there's a way you could, place that Hodge on. But when it comes to glove starts for Jose, his first 2 item slams are either IE or Last Whisper. So that tier is going to go somewhere else most likely.
Yeah, they're going to go with Last Whisper probably when it comes to the item that they want to slam. The reason why is you need 2 bows and 2 crit gloves to go traditional best in slot Nocturne. If you think Runin's is that best in slot, I don't think it is, but if you do, all the power to you. You're wrong, but the overarching theme here is that Jose will nosedive. Right? He's totally fine with these really weak openings because you have to pick first on this next carousel. Because the longer you have to wait for your items, the longer that power spike for Nocturne has to wait, and it's been nerfed again, right? And the longer you wait, the shorter time you have to absolutely rip apart the lobby. So as you're waiting for that Nocturne 3. So there's a lot that can go right and can go wrong for Jose, but I think the biggest thing is making sure you get your items, particularly on this first carousel.
Yeah, and you could see we switched over to Shining Star, who had 3 gloves. And when you always have an overabundance of gloves, so kind of the 2 main things you can make with gloves that are, I think, pretty good right now for damage items are that IE Last Whisper that we talked about. And then there are situational things, like maybe your QSS and other things that you might build later on, but it's more of an afterthought. So when you have this overabundance of gloves, I loved what Shining Star decided to do and get the Thief's Gloves. Now, you had an amazing roll in the Thief's Gloves because it has a Warmogs, especially for this Leona. Now, maybe Leona isn't the best damage item holder because her ult doesn't really do damage, it blocks. So he got a really good lucky roll with the Warmogs and ends up continuing his streak.
Yeah, he gets a nice Thief's Gloves roll. Doesn't it bother you that it's not Thieves' Gloves? It's a singular thief. Oh. Anyway, that really gets to me sometimes.
You've taught me something.
You're welcome. Your brain cell got stronger today. It's been lifting weights, I can tell.
It's powering up.
Yeah, exactly. It's in the hyperbolic time chamber. That is the emptiness of your brain. Anyway, there's more gravity in there. But this Thief's Gloves roll is going to be actually even better than the last one because of the Shroud that is going to whiff. Only good if you get value out of it. So we're going up against Abomination, so we probably are going to have a harder time with that anyway. But this Leona should be able to stall out at least a couple unit kills, if not a round win. But now that things have gotten a little separated, I think this Abomination's going down by the Riven, but the Riven needs to survive the couple ultimates that are coming their way, and that's not going to happen. As Shining Star going to be a little bit dimmed right now. As we move over to Daofu, who was playing Kayle, had the most stressful fight night of last week. And again, that's because you purposely are playing Kayle. So, that's going to require a lot of decision making, a lot of choice identification. And when you identify those choices, making the correct one with all the context that you have, Kayle requires the most. But once you lock it in, it can feel almost impossible to break through.
And when it came to Shining Star's board as well, you saw that Hodge Slam on a Riven, and I mean Hodge is one of the best in slot items for Kayle. Because it has that hybrid damage of AP and AD. So, and also Riven and Jax being great item holders for things like Hodge and things that Carry will hold later on, like maybe a Rage Blade. I think Rage Blade absolutely necessary. So I think just based on Shining Star's kind of night opener with a Hodge Slam, that has some Kayle hints to it. But now we're looking at Daofu, who was able to get away with a good round win earlier thanks to that Abomination. I think that was the whole point of why they were able to win against Shining Star on a 3 streak. Will they be able to hold on to this before Krugs? You're really looking for the perfect TFT game. The more HP you have, the more comfortable you can play your late game, the more time you have to pivot to the final comp that you want. And look at this, almost a 5-0 finish. Maybe loses 1 unit, but that's a really dominant start for Daofu.
Yeah, it might not be the only 100 HP start we have in the lobby as we move over to Draco, and this is something that I like seeing, which is the AP items on Kha'Zix. So this has been something that has creeped up in a little popularity. You can actually use Kha'Zix as a karma item holder. I know, super weird, but all of the damage that Kha'Zix does is magic damage when it comes to the ultimate. So not only are you going to get a nice little crit if they aren't isolated, a Jeweled Gauntlet pretty much guarantees, no matter what tier your tank line is going to fall. So there has been... Gunblade is not very good on him, but outside of that, you can put AP items if you rush into a Kha'Zix and happen to have it before your Soraka. We have both versions here, so it's kind of your pick of the litter. But you can put these items on Kha'Zix. You're not wasting them, and they can transition into some other items. But when you ult next to an Ionic Spark like that, you're gonna eat some damage, and apparently it was too much for that Kha'Zix this time around.
No, I absolutely agree about the item holder of Kha'Zix and AP. Back when I was like one-tricking Karma when she was good, back in my day when Dawnbringers were good, absolutely Kha'Zix was the first item holder. And especially this early where there's so little units, Kha'Zix ult is, if he has a unit isolated, it does more damage. And he will absolutely be able to guarantee you to take out at least 1 unit, if not more. And then there's some people that actually prefer to put those damage AP items on Soraka, maybe because she has a more AoE type of ult, but to each their own. But the JG Slam also tells me this is more... we'll see if that ends up being Karma just because there's so many Dawnbringers, but then kind of the AP meta comp is around Vel'Koz or Heimer these days, where JG a little bit better for Vel'Koz and Archangel Staff better for Heimer.
Yeah, we could, anytime we see these Dawnbringer openings, they can go a couple different directions. There are a couple units that you can anchor with Dawnbringers. For example, You can jug with the Gragas, right? You can have Riven hold items. You can have Soraka hold items, right? But what I haven't stated necessarily is anyone who can carry. So one of the things that Dawnbringer is really fascinating about is where it can go to, right? I think it's one of the better, late early game to like mid game compositions that you could ask for because of that HP regeneration. But at the end of the day, that's not going to make it to the end game as we actually go up against some Sentinels for the first time, as Rayo was playing some rats not too long ago, but has gone into the Nidalee, which Nidalee is either, it depends on what round it is, the most broken character you've ever seen in your life, or you forget that it can dodge. Depends if you're going up against it or if it's your Nidalee.
And Nidalee even got nerfed, and she's been kind of like the low-key counter to a lot of these backline carries because she can jump back there and dodge, and then sometimes even take out these squishy backliners. And what's even interesting about this Dawnbringer start is that they had also 4 brawlers. They had the Set and the Sejuani on the bench, where 4 brawlers is a really good opener because 4 brawlers is 1,000 extra HP to all those brawlers, which essentially acts like a warmog on each of those. So early game ends up saving you a lot of HP, if not being one of the more consistent openers. As we pivot over to Fears, who has already slammed the blue buff on Ziggs, very, very good, and high rolled a Vel'Koz.
Yeah, we have some Draconics in here. I have a very rough relationship with Draconics. I've lost more LP on this comp than any other comp out there, and I refuse to stop playing it. Really interesting here. So Spellweavers did get changed. There is no longer a cap on the damage that they can do in the timing of that Ash arrow. Woo-wee was beautiful as Jose dropping to below 40 HP. This is some of the lowest I've seen Jose since I've started seeing him here at Fight Night. But they did get the Radiant Blessing. That's why we did see a quick little scout over there. I'm curious to see what he did get. But looking over at Fears right now, we have the Vel'Koz, which is the anchor, which can be the footing to a lot of compositions, and there is Abomination Spellweaver comp that is coming through, and you can get there from Draconic, but this could just be general Spellweaver. I think Vel'Koz is where a lot of exploration can still take place when it comes to this meta, since a lot of people seem to be playing a lot of Aphelios, a lot of attack damage. Vel'Koz seems to just gotten a little bit forgotten about, all like Ari of last set.
And now you see Fears facing another AP comp and kind of similar slams where we have the blue buff on the Ziggs on the other side, kind of the Spider-Man point, but Fears loses that Abomination, providing such a strong frontline for Daofu. But when it comes to these blue buffs, I'm kind of wondering, now, what does that sword become for Fears? Because usually a sword would become either a Hextech or a Shoujin's. Shoujin's being a lot more popular. People are kind of mixed on Hextech and these carries. But then kind of looking for another Spellweaver to maybe, if you want that blue buff to be the mana item for Vel'Koz, how are you going to move that off of Ziggs? Are you going for 4 Spellweaver? Are you satisfied with 2 Spellweaver? I've even heard people don't even care about putting synergies around Vel'Koz. There's so many different ways of playing him because he's such a strong individual unit. But now we maybe get to go a check-in last place, Jose, who is just grieving his early game to get exactly the item he wants, and that's the Diana with the glove.
Yeah, and I mean, again, 26 HP doesn't feel like a lot, but I've seen Jose get everything they needed at 7 HP and almost take down the entire lobby because of it. So unless an assassin player is actually off of the board, there is always a chance. But the roles here aren't as friendly. Jose is notorious for having some of the best roles in TFT, Fight Night Rising. They just seem to happen all of a sudden for him. We do finally have that Nocturne 2. We're going to start itemizing it. We do not have the Infinity Edge just yet. The Crit Glove is on the Diana, so we are still waiting for it, but we have our Radiant item coming up, and that's when Jose is really going to make most of his decisions. Usually, Jose is going to want to hit 40 HP at 3-5, so he can get his Blessing, and then get the Radiant item, and then hit the NPC round, or PvE round, and figure it out from there. We were just a little early this time around, so don't freak out just yet. We'll see what this Radiant item is. If those are bad, then it's time to freak out. And those aren't great.
Not amazing. Maybe you go Locket here. I've seen him actually when he has these extra rods slam Lockets and
Yep.
also reforge them, but that's feels like the only thing
Yep.
that makes sense to me. So he's gonna
Agreed.
end up going with that. Also surprised he's not slamming that Hurricane. I know you seem to hate it on Nocturne, and he's been extra greedy because he kept the Draconic in for like an extra round when he was on an 8 streak. But such an important win for Jose to win that last fight, and now feels a little bit more stable and might now greed these items for Wolves coming up in the next round and see if he can go for an RFC, because he really loves his RFC for Nocturne.
Yeah, and Jose's not going to worry again. We got an okay item. Anytime you can invest in a carry like you can with like a Locket, you're feeling really, really good about it, especially with Revenant. So you just get a little bit of extra time. You get one more cycle of auto attacks most likely, and it's going to pay off on this particular matchup. And we didn't even need to win this one out. Thank goodness for that, Diana. But the overarching theme is after Wolves, we'll really see the place that Jose is at right now, as you kind of see Nidalee exhibiting exactly what I said earlier. But as we move over to Rayo, on this Wolves round, we did pick up the Shroud of Stillness, the Radiant version. Had a good weekend in Vegas. Got a little bit of extra, fashion. Got some gold in that cape. And it's going to have to get juggled around, and that's one of the hardest parts about this particular Radiant item is it does require juggling and a lot of positioning.
Yeah, and that's where now that he has it on the bench, he can even leave it there until his next fight and then just place it if he really wants to cheese it. And I've honestly severely undervalued the value of this Radiant item because it has a wider beam than the regular version, but also I believe gives starting mana to everybody, and that extra cast might save his team. I love Radiant items that give like a team-wide bonus, things like your Radiant Banshees or this one, or there's like a few Trap Claw. So might be cheesing this claw, kind of placing his units accordingly, but no damage on the Riven yet. And Riven did get nerfed, so not a lot of people care for 3-star Rivens anymore. People prefer Jax now.
Also, I don't know if y'all noticed in the chat that Nautilus was in the back line. We finally have some reaction to Assassin players. Like the last 8 weeks, straight up, no one was doing that. No one was responding. It was like they just ignored Jose until it was like Jose and them at the end. And by that point, it was too late, right? We finally have some actual positioning counters right now, even though there are still 8 people left. And you know what that check mark on Jose's name means? You should be scared. That means things are happening. And it was just a gold stimmy this time around, which actually is okay for someone like Jose, who does seem like they have stabilized, as we're at level 8 already at 4-2 right now, 4 of Fears. We have a lot of gold to roll down with, and we are getting a couple really good units. Blue buff Giant Slayer on the Vel'Koz is nice, especially if it's a Vel'Koz 2, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Now we're seeing like an Abomination Vel'Koz board. We're kind of deciding what units are going in. The blue buff Giant Slayer, not your best in slot, but still will do a heck of a lot of damage, especially with the Giant Slayer buffs recently. Does a lot more damage. Maybe I would have liked to see the Gwen, that safety bubble, be closer to the Vel'Koz, but he's going to be shielded quite well thanks to that Grave of the Abomination and then the peel that the Abomination gets. I love that he's frontlining the brand, and people have been doing that way more recently because as soon as, 2 or 3 allies die, that's when the Abomination comes out. So you kind of get rid of your useless units to really protect ones like Vel'Koz, but you also need to worry about the Threshes that are hooking your carries to the front line, but it's still not enough. A huge win there for Fears.
So let me tell you a little something, friends, that I was told back in set 1, and I still have a problem with. It is don't develop relationships with your units, right? And at first I was like, that's weird. And then when you have to sell a 3-cost, a tier 3 1-cost unit because you need those items, all of a sudden you're like, but you've been with me this whole time. But you got to just get rid of them, right? Just like this. It might seem really weird to transition into a bunch of 1-cost units, but these are all just stronger units and will synergize better together. The main thing here is our tentacled brother, Vel'Koz, is going to use that Disintegration Ray against a very similar comp here. This is going to be the Heimerdinger version, which is a lot more common pre this patch. But this Vel'Koz has really started rocketing it up those leaderboards. And look at all that damage. Giant Slayer really coming into play there.
That giant slayer is huge. I also like the Lux in that bottom left corner, and she is shielding the furthest allies. Now, some people like to put it across to the right side of the board to shield the carries, but in this case, because you have so much frontline potential, it's all about buying time for your Vel'Koz. I love that the shield is going towards the tanks, and you have the Lux in the corner as thresh bait. But now we're at our stage 4 carousel on board with Draco, and sometimes Spat seems like bait, but goes for a rod.
Well, there are less Spats now. So when you see them on the carousel, they are a little bit more valuable. And Spats at spawn no longer count towards your minimum item usage by wolves. So you're supposed to have 10 item components by wolves, and Spats do not count towards that anymore. So because what would happen a lot of the time would be like you would get a Spat in your NPC round or PvE round, and then it would stay there until like the last round. Or until you get another Spat. So they're making it a little bit more valuable as we do start seeing some transitions here. And thank you, Hogwarts, for letting Draco participate today. We really appreciate it. As we're starting to pivot into some really good units here. We're moving into... Are we doing it? Okay. So we're going to move into playing Karma here. So Karma did get buffed. Do you like the tone on that? They got buffed and can work in a couple of these lobbies. And actually, this lobby is pretty squishy. So next time when Karma's alive, we're definitely going to get an opportunity to see if that's going to work out for him. But Karma got immediately targeted by the fully stacked evolution from Shining Star.
Yeah, it's really tough. So her soul flare damage went up by just a little bit. It's a very minor change, but still a change that she desperately needed, because she's fallen out of the meta and hasn't been meta for a long time. And really the fear around Karma is her inconsistency. Any champion that takes time to ramp up, your Jazz, your Kayle, your Karma, these are the ones that are very sketchy, right? Because they take time to build up towards damage, and Karma is especially one of those because her mana is reduced, and that's how she's able to keep casting. But if she's interrupted and she's very squishy, she's very susceptible to assassins. So that's why I was mainly surprised to see this Karma pivot, because of the amount of assassins. Now you're kind of putting all the eggs in that Syndra basket to hopefully dunk on these assassins, because that Karma 1, you sneeze on her and she's dead.
Yeah, I mean, in today's time, sneezing is, not as, weak as it used to be. It's a little bit more of a forceful force in the world. But the Karma has already... but when the Karma is able to do that, right, you start getting hope. And that's the thing about Karma. She's really good about giving you hope because she's amazing at almost killing units. Right, and look at all those health bars. And so once you get to tier 2 Karma, you're going to be much better off. But two things. Random targeting will always be frustrating, right? It'll either win you around or lose you around, and that's what makes it fun for a viewer. And two, Karma does need to be enabled by other invokers. You want at least the 2. We have a little hodgepodge right now before we switched in and dropped a Dawnbreaker just then, but we would have loved to have a Teemo, but we don't have enough HP for a Teemo, and that stinks because it was actually in our shop. So we just have to hope for one on Carousel if we want it, if we want to hit 4 invokers. But our front line, a little paper thin, but we do have the Karma 2 finally. And against things like Kayle, Karma can actually do quite well. Things that take a long time, just like the Karma, right, will hopefully, when the coin flips happen, crit those particular units, as it's going to be the IE Jewel Gauntlet combo, which guarantees crits on every single Soul Flare. Soul Flare! Sounds like a ska band. Welcome Soul Flare to the stage.
It sounds like some kind of, I don't know, jazz song, jazz band. The Soul Flare. Soul. But yeah, there was 2 options. Whether he wanted to do a second JG because he had a rod and a glove, he could have made that, but you're going for the glass cannon setup of IE and the Jewel Gauntlet. So this is going to do a lot of damage. Then you put the Ionic Spark on the Garen, which already does MR shred, but sure, let's add more to that. But only tossed up the front line, but that Nocturne sat on that Karma's face and did not let her play the game. So Draco is a second away from going out in 8th place, and that's the curse of Karma.
Yep, and there's Jose's Valentine coming back as well, 8 HP on tier 3. Nocturne, we'll see if that nerf is going to cause them to bottom out in the bottom 4 for the first time in what I feel like is a while. This should be a Lucian and Akshan win. Akshan, a little bit more of like a last whisper bot right now, is the Aphelios and the other primary carries. They're going to be taking you out. But now we have this Lucian on the board, and this Sentinel comp is looking okay, right? These Sentinel comps always look really good, but then their performance always really falters in the late game. We're on a 2-loss streak right now as we're starting to put in a couple more units. Those items would be okay on Kayle, but just like anything else, there's nothing more TFT than selling your carry and putting in a Kayle for no reason.
Oh, that quick swap to the left side. And yeah, I absolutely agree with what you said earlier. Of Sentinel 6 is maybe the flavor that you go for the mid game, starting to go into the late game. But just like every board, no matter what you're playing, Revenant is the best frontline in that late game because of exactly this. Is Volibear just slamming that whole right side. Lucian's a little bit exposed, and there's an Irelia and a Jax on it. And even Jax with no items will still do a lot of work. There's one damage provider left of the Irelia with Thieves' Gloves, but not going to be enough for Shining Star, and that's enough to knock him out at 7.
Look at this lobby. You know, this is why I say don't worry about your assassin players until they're out, right? Because we are all of a sudden, in the, you know, at 8 HP, but in 4th place, and this is what happens, right? Everyone just eats HP away from Jose, then he locks in this particular build. He does go for RFC a lot, but we have, you know, traditional best-in-slot Nocturne right now. In my opinion, it's the Ivern and the Diana that are like the true enablers of this comp, and what you're seeing right now is making sure that the positioning is good, because Diana is the tank in this comp. It's kind of like the backline tank until Ivern pops out Daisy, right? So we are going to bait with the Nautilus, and that is why you want to put a tank into the back line and see if that's going to work out. But Nocturne 3 is here, friends. Who needs attack speed? BT dubs. For all of you players putting Rageblade on Nocturne, you do not need it, my friends, as it's going to be Rats versus Vel'Koz, and Rats take the dub there. Will Chewy survive against our step coach here, which is going to be a no, so a double elimination, and Jose makes it into the top 4.
And there's just a lot of these. I think there was a lot of strong comps that ended up in that bottom 4. Whether, okay, we don't talk about the Karma from Draco, but we do talk about the Lucian from Chewy. Had pretty much best in slot Lucian, or a Shine with the Sentinel, same thing. These are backline units that when you turtle around them, Lucian's just going to jump away from the safety that of his tanks and expose himself to assassins. So it's kind of tough of how do you stop assassins when they are, you know, at full force, you know, 3-star, your Zeeks, best in slot Nocturne, etc. You just gotta hope you can see that Nocturne to death, whether with Revenants. And maybe there's a world where your carries that scale up, your Kayles, your Jaxes, like there's a world where if you stun them at the right time and you dwindle them down before the Nocturne regenerates, you can beat assassins. But there's a reason why Jose is the assassin king, but this Teemo could slow down the pace of things.
Can definitely slow it down, and the thing about Teemo 2 is, you know, with that cruel trait, but we'll talk about that another time, because this Nocturne is doing all right right now. Now you're seeing, it's so interesting. Nocturne will give you a look at why every single one of those items is good, right? Say we had an RFC that time, that might have been a much harder round to win, but what's really exciting right now is the team comp that I believe has a really good shot against these Nocturnes are single target, high damage units, right? So those are Draven for me and Aphelios. So Aphelios does do a good job against the Nocturne together with the Akshan. That's in Fight Night, the combo that we've seen defeat Jose most often, along with like and every once in a while Bramble Vest. But I wonder if people just didn't build it because they saw him go so low and just assumed he wouldn't make it this far, because there are no Brambles right now from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, Ray, when you brought up the Draven, for example, he decides to put RFC instead of like a Hurricane, something. So that's Draven is mainly single target. Now, I've been hearing more commotion about RFC Draven because apparently his pathing is super bad. He'll just like walk into the front line and just get himself killed. So RFC kind of prevents that. And even though this is single target damage, it did take out a few units, but as soon as that front line from Draven crumbles, it makes him really vulnerable. Now, can he 1v5 thanks to that polymorph morph of
Jose lost.
Lulu, it did not happen. Yeah, Jose was on 5 HP. He just needed to lose once from bad positioning or the luck of the draw of his opponent, and that is Jose being out at 4th.
Actually, I think the Aphelios comp actually took him down.
Yeah,
so with the Akshan, because that was the other comp that we didn't see. So looking, that's looking to be a lot more accurate now, especially after that little bit of damage that was taken off of Nocturne during the B patch. But now we have a 1v1v1 scenario right now. It's rock, paper, scissors, 3 different comps. We have the kind of mix and match comp right now, which is going to be more of that Heimerdinger A-bomb composition. We have Draven as well, and we have Aphelios. This is going to be really interesting to see who comes out on top amongst these 3 comps, which are all notoriously very good.
Yeah, I'm surprised this Abomination is lasting that long, because I would think, there was a Karma and a Cinder in that shop. You could have gone 4 Invoker, especially if you're really depending on this Teemo to be your carry. But now thinking, and especially you have a Volley too, you have a Fiddlesticks too, I would think this would be a sufficient frontline, but still thinks that oh my god, those mines from Teemo just obliterated that front line. And then you have the Hodge that he got earlier, easy place on the Heimerdinger. And despite maybe Abomination's not being a strong late, it's still carrying him to a lot of success. Lurdy's just getting beaten down.
Oh my goodness, these ults are all happening at the right time. Oh, that was actually really close. So the thing about Aphelios, again, just like Assassins, it ain't over until they're actually over. How many times has Aphelios ulted one more time and taken you down as we get another armory here? We have a lot of damage already, so we might want to prop up our front line a little bit. Frozen Heart could be okay, but we could also go a little extra damage. Utility with the Banshees could be good too. And so we're going to go ahead and keep our backline protected. Unfortunate here is Daofu's comp could be stronger, right? We still have a Heimerdinger 1, we still have a Teemo 1, and a lot of our damage is going to be coming from those 1-cost units. So the second we actually get them to a point where they can start carrying with the damage, Heimerdinger 2 is going to be the lock and key, in my opinion, for that. And by the way, friends, Trap Claws can stack. That was not a mistake.
Yeah, and you saw that the cloak, the shroud, hit the Teemo and the Heimer, so it's really delaying these casts from Daofu, but we'll see if that makes a difference. The front line from Daofu starting to get hit. The Teemo mushrooms, though, destroying the front line on the other side, but the Draven is still alive. Does he have enough of stacked attack speed? And it's actually Daofu's units who are looking at the leftover Cavalier of Hecarim, allowing Draven to finish off the rest. So Lurdy will drop in 3rd place, leaving Rayo and Daofu as the final 2.
Wow. We actually almost got to see Draven got crueled there. The mini Teemo can still cruel. The level 0
that got
Teemo.
changed, right?
And so what the crazy thing is, it was the Teemo and the turret that were still left, and we were, thank goodness, able to target the Teemo first. But you can never discount that Teemo. You might feel like you're winning, but at the end of the day, the things like Draven, you're gonna get to a 1v1 situation because it's a single target unit, and sometimes that last target is Teemo.
Now, 27 HP for Daofu. Couple more losses to go before we decide our first place, but Rayo looking definitely healthy. This Draven took a slap and just kicked right back, but his front line is no longer. And I don't know about, 1v5 doable for Draven these days, but maybe not a 1v10. So this Draven will lose, and Rayo is now at the same HP as Daofu.
All right, we have Hellion Spat, we got Thief's Gloves, singular. So the Thief's Gloves now will get picked up. That's going to be 5 gold to use. We're tied right now as we finally get our last Radiant Blessing, which at this point in time, being gold is actually really, really nice. And we have some freedom to roll at level 9 to get some of our higher cost units. This particular team comp only running with 1 5 cost right now, which is the Viego. And that's all it needs at the moment. We're going to push in for a potential Mystic splash because of the comp that we're facing. There's going to be a lot of Teemo. There's going to be a lot of stuff going. We have double jewel gauntlet, ionic spark. Let's see if that's going to be enough.
It decides to position the Draven on the left side, but did manage to block that Volibear pounce and is just going at it. But the Abomination came out so late by the time Draven's frontline crumbled, so it CC'd the Draven. The Draven was only focused on that Abomination, and Daofu takes the second win in a row. Last life for Rayo.
And we still don't have Heimerdinger 2, but we did find the Teemo 2. So that is why our HP is lower than what it should be if we had just lost those rounds. 12 of those, I think 12 of that HP were picked up from the Teemo. I think both players now have a... did we sell the Gwen? Nope, we put it in. We put the Gwen 2 on the board. We're really worried about the Teemo there. So we're going to give a little bit of help and a little bit of stats by placing that Gwen in front of the Draven. This could be it.
This is the last one. Let's see who this Viego is going to pick up. Even an Ivern wouldn't be bad, especially that extra Daisy's always good. So Draven already brought down to 50 HP in the safety bubble of Gwen, but gets bursted by, of course, the Teemo, the Heimer, you name it. There is so much damage for Daofu's board, completely capped out and seconds away once he takes out that Rel. That should be it for Rayo, and Daofu will take first place in our first lobby.
Jose wasn't the one to take the first place spot from the Philippines. It was Daofu this time around. So a lot of really good games, a lot of really cool team comps that we saw there. It's always really cool to get a rock paper scissors situation at the end of that lobby, having 4 different comps top 4.
And I think kind of continuing of our intro show about the volatility of assassins and how Jose had the dream comp but sacrificed so much HP in order to get there. It took one bad loss or a couple of bad losses to take him out. I think he was at 20 HP. But let's take a look at how those scores have shaped up. Lurty, 3rd place with Aphelios. Jose, 4th with Assassins. Ray, 2nd place with Draven. And I guess a Viego in there. And Daofu 1st with the Heimer Teemo.
Yeah, so Draven has been notoriously... So Fight Night doesn't necessarily go with, the meta every single time, right? There are 2 points where that reminds me. There was a point where Hyper Roll Tristana in last set was the rage, and we didn't really have any Hyper Rollers in a game. And there was a time where it was War Week, and we didn't have really anyone play Warwick here. And so what I'm trying to say is the meta doesn't matter in these tournament situations sometimes. The meta is determined by the 8 players that are participating, right? So this current meta that we're seeing in this lobby is one of people playing patiently. We're moving into the later game. No one really tried to rush up that leaderboard at the early game outside of the Dawnbringer player, and so we're starting to invest into lower HP economies. Right, we're going to be slamming our final units at around 18 to 35 HP as opposed to trying to push really strong comps and then kind of like tank the mid game and then try to push again. There are different varieties of styles now, which is super cool.
Yeah, and I'm surprised to see Draven in a top 4. I was kind of asking some of these Draven players what they thought about Draven because in the recent patch, his attack speed got a big buff from 0.75 to 0.8. So Draven making his way back up, but kind of same thing as other units. The scaling of Draven can make him a sketchy unit to really want to depend on. And then some people have criticized his pathing. Sometimes Draven likes to walk up and be a little bit too involved and cozy with the front line, or gets thresh hooked like other backline carries. But I think the RFC placement was really key for Ray in this case. And then you have the Viego, which starts to turn units in your favor, and you're kind of, even without killing units, you're starting to make your board stronger by the conversion of Viego. So I'm pleasantly surprised to see Draven do this well.
I mean, everyone loves Draven. I love Draven. I like feeding on Draven on the Rift, right? Like, if you ever want to see someone miss most of their axes, just watch me play the character on TFT. It's weird. I don't know how that keeps happening.
Reverse Tyler 1?
Yeah, literally. I love... Draven was the first ever comp I ever mained back in set 1.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I have a lot of love for the Draven, and always, anytime there is a comp that only one person's gonna run, right, that you're going to have access to those units, because that Misfortune reroll Forgotten comp isn't as popular as it is right now, you can be pretty patient with the Draven and just kind of, econ and get, and get going through econing a little bit slower, getting to the Draven, making sure you have the items a little bit closer to your Nocturne play. But you could also be pretty aggressive with the Forgottens too, because you can do a little bit of a Vayne carry as well with the newer Vayne with a little bit of attack damage. Even after the B patch, I still think you can run a nice Vayne carry, especially early on. She can hold really good items for people.
And Vayne got a little extra love in that B patch. She got I guess she got nerfed a little bit, but she's been loved by everybody all the time. I always go into these lobbies and there's a 3-star Vayne, and I'm like, oh, she's a 1-cost. She's not supposed to be good, right? And then Vayne ruins my damn day. And I wonder if Lurty was maybe starting with a Vayne, because we only got to kind of check in once he got that Aphelios online, but Vayne being a great carrier for Aphelios, and not a bad start for Lurty too, which I was surprised that was the only Aphelios board, because a lot of people love the consistency of Aphelios these days.
Yeah, we see Aphelios get second here all the time, but I say that on purpose. Aphelios rarely takes that top spot, but it is really consistent and has been able to win these lobbies out at the end of the day. But in reality, it always seems like some leapfrog situation where you'll see the Aphelios just live in second and third place the whole time, and then it becomes like a Nocturne Aphelios 1v1, which is kind of how it's been the last couple weeks with Jose in the lobby. But we saw Jose, like we mentioned before, there is no saying it's over until Jose is down for the count. You have to consistently position against that assassin player. And imagine if Jose had 10 extra HP or had an extra round in him, we might be talking about his lobby right now if we didn't nosedive as much as we did. I think we lost about 10 to 20 HP more than we should have.
And Jose maybe didn't get the most ideal Radiant item too, right? Locket, the Radiant Locket that you ended up picking up, the rest were like AP items. So there's a world where if you had the Assassin Spat, you can make Fiddlesticks your new carry. But I don't think Jose ever ended up getting that Assassin Spat, so didn't want to invest in any AP. We'll see what kind of start we'll be going for. We're on board with Daofu, who won our lobby first with a Heimer Teemo setup and had so much HP and so much money to invest into that composition.
Yeah, so starting items, the Crit Glove, definitely very popular. If you're like someone who, if you're a Black Friday shopper, right, then go for the Crit Glove, right? There's gonna be crowds there. We're gonna need a body, some other little legends to get to that Crit Glove. Or if you're like me and you just wait for Cyber Monday, I just get the sword. Or even
stay home.
Yeah, or just the belt, because I know everyone's going for this Crit Glove. I'm just gonna get the other part to my itemization and just tank my HP and pick first on the carousel. Maybe I'll even get lucky and get the items I need in these first initial PvE rounds, which I've been getting a ton of gold on recently. I don't know if it's just me, but I've been getting like 10 to 15 gold after these rounds. 2 games today in a row where I've gotten to pre-level because I just had so much gold. I didn't know what to do with it.
That seems like a really good problem to have, to be honest. Yeah. Hey, now you got a Redemption Slam right away. I was kind of thinking if you wanted to go any kind of mana route, then Ziggs always is a good Spellweaver, this AP item holder, especially now that you were telling me earlier about how Spellweavers don't have a cap anymore, so they scale so well. So Heimer is just not this automatic comp that you're aiming towards in the late game. Now Spellweavers can be in that conversation for a capped AP board, depending on how many Spellweavers you want to put up. But now thinking a Brawler 2 opening might be better than the Knight 2.
I like Brawler 2 openings. Like you said, it's just free stats, and health is, I think you can make the argument as the most valuable early game stat. Definitely until round 3, where just having enough health to survive can win you rounds, right? How many times have it feels like Senna's throwing toothpicks at a unit because they have too much HP, right? So now that we have that extra health equals time equals mana, like for your backline, and that mana equals an ultimate as we get rid of most of that health. And we're going to go with the Sentinels, so we're trading health for shielding. Should be a pretty good gain here as well, because we're going to need a little bit of that attack speed in order to take down a unit, because we don't have any items, and Senna right now is our most powerful unit. Oh, but we are going over to Jose, who's open forting. So we are going to just go ahead and win this round real quick and see what happens next.
Is that a reforger on his bench too? Well, he's gonna want that if he ever gets a rod or wants to dodge a locket slam. I've seen him reforge a locket before, so he might be happy to have that around in case he gets too many AP items. He really loves to just have AD and only think about AP if he gets that assassin spat online. But I was very curious about Daofu wanting to pre-level to put a set in, which doesn't have any synergies really. And I like the Sentinel also start, because if you have finding an Olaf, I think Olaf too, one of the best AD holders in the early game, especially when surrounded by either skirmishers or Sentinel. As we check in on how Jose is doing a little bit of scouting, seeing what everyone's up to, and kind of the open fort situation, as you said.
So Jose has about half of what they need right now. We will check in. The only time we really need to see Jose is during carousel rounds to see where the next glove is coming, and when the next fiddle is going to get there, because you need the Revenant revive again. Because how many times have you killed the Nocturne and then it revives and it just happens to be on the third swipe, right? and then you have to go through it all over again. As we finally have a Yasuo. A little bit surprised we haven't seen any of this just yet. No Yasuo comps, no Nightbringers in that last lobby, but that is not because it's bad. Yasuo can do some really good work. It should help Fears right now beat out Draco.
Yeah, Yasuo and Riven, some of these 3-star reroll comps did get nerfed in that 11.17 patch. Specifically Yasuo, his 3-star version got his blade damage nerfed, his stacking true damage got nerfed, his attack speed got nerfed, and my poor damn Riven. The first week that I learned how to play Riven reroll, she gets nerfed. So we'll have to see the viability of that. I think that Fight Night is a good tournament where I wouldn't say low stakes, but it's an area where you can experiment with these comps in a tournament setting without having to worry about, okay, if I go 8th in this tournament, my career's not ended,
Look at, speaking of 8th, look at the bottom 4 versus top 4. Have you ever seen this before?
Bottom
4 100s right now going into the carousel round, which means everyone has 1, 2 in a row. We definitely have some 100s facing up against each other. But yeah, Jose absolutely needed to open fort to compete for this first carousel opening, because Rayo, and if Shining Star loses here, could have maybe taken him out of that position. But we are going to be A-okay. Shining Star will be picking second. Jose has accomplished what they need to do, which is pick first. Now we just have to hope that there are some crit gloves on the carousel, and there is. Where is Jose? Looks like the positioning is pretty good too. So Jose will be going for that. Or, okay. Crit glove is going to stay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's going to be the bow. So maybe we already have what we need on the crit glove way, so we can make our runins.
Yeah, you need so many bows for a Nocturne comp, right? The Last Whisper requiring one, the RFC, which we know Jose loves to run, that one as well. But get to go and check in with Fears, who still on that Yasuo board, and I get scared running melee carries like Riven. Yasuo plays the same of, there's always the option of going RFC, but the Hurricane being so necessary. So if you get stuck on a stubborn tank, you're not just kind of inting. So you can at least spread that damage, spread that love around. I'd be curious to see if he decides what kind of AP item he decides to put on Yasuo, if at all, because I've been hearing some people trying out Archangel Staff on Yasuo and that being better than JG.
Well, a lot of people like the JG for the crit on the true damage, right? But when you have just raw extra damage from the Archangel Staff, it might scale a little bit better. But RFC, we could do the Runins. We have the Runins Hurricane. We can do the Rapid Fire Cannon. But the Jewel Gauntlet is something that I do like seeing on the Yasuo because of that true damage, as we finally have only 200 HP players remaining, and it's going to be Fears and Daofu, who has seemed to have broken up with Kayle. Sorry, Kayle. and gone another direction. But one thing is for sure, and one thing is always true at Fight Night, Jose will be in 8th place all the way through 4-1, most likely. Really, again, Jose's goal, as we've learned, is at 3-4 to get your Radiant Blessing, 3-5 to get your Stimmy. Or no, your Radiant item. Your Stimmy is going to be at 3-4, and then you get the the PvE round after that.
So if we're calling Kayle the Kyle board, what are we calling Heimer Teemo? Is it like the Teamer or the Heimo? Because that's what Daofu was running last time, so I'm trying to help him out here.
I have some ideas, but I'll tell you later.
Okay, sounds broadcast friendly. Can't wait to hear
Yeah,
it.
exactly. I'll tell you what first came to my mind a little bit later. On the line, I might just say it. We'll see. We'll see if there's an appropriate time. Not going to force it. But yeah, the Heimerdinger and the Teemo, that has already been successful, and TFT players tactically borrow all the time, right? So we might be seeing a little bit more of that Heimer instead, because that Vel'Koz Abomination build that we saw is something that is starting to crawl up the leaderboard. If you go to some websites, it'll actually say that it's S tier. Also on some websites, it'll have like 9 S tier comps, which would inherently make S tier not existing. But anyway, I don't care, obviously.
You get it first. You get it first.
Yeah, exactly. But the one thing I love about this is the 4 brawler opening, which is something that we don't see very much of, and also can be moderately difficult to come out of as well. So we already have the Yasuo, so we're already leaning Nightbringers, but with the types of units that are there, we could, be a little bit spicy and go Dawnbringers. We could invest into Abominations, for example. There's a couple of different ways to go here.
Yeah, I mean, you could just even stick to the Nightbringers, because I know Sejuani is a brawler. I think it's been 6 years now that Sejuani is a brawler, and I still can't believe it. But I like to call the thing that she rides on like a doggo. That doggo do be chonky. So, hey, I would stick with the Sejuani Yasuo, and then there's a world where Aphelios fits in there. That seems to be like the strongest direction, unless you get Abominations online around the Nunu, because then the Hurricane go to a Callista, and you can figure it out from there. But this early, it's hard to tell what directions we're going in. But when it comes to this one from Rayo, it's pretty obvious. You got a Shojins, you got a Rod, you already have your Redeems. This could be a Vel'Koz direction.
Definitely, and Varus can hold either carries items. Looks like we're already going that direction right now. And Varus's Bless can be a difference maker when it comes to some of these closer matchups. I'll never forget, I wonder if it was an accident, but a while ago, there was like a Varus Akshan comp that absolutely destroyed a lobby and then never appeared again. It was like it never existed. But I've wanted to see it ever since then, because the Bless proc it was just like how it worked with Pantheon. So in the last set, Pantheon's ultimate was coded as an auto attack. So Varus Pantheon became a little popular at the very end of that set. Now you can kind of do the same kind of shenanigans with Akshan. Every time he swings, each one of those will get or I guess every other one would get that Bless proc as well from the Varus. So could be interesting. We'll see, but Vel'Koz is definitely an easier way. Because, that's always the thing with TFT, right? There's the right direction, and then there's the fun direction.
You mean the 8th place direction?
Yeah, there's there's a reason why it's called innovating. It's because the word 8th is in it, right? So like when you're innovating, right, you're probably gonna get 8th place, but sometimes you luck into a nice little win. But as we get back to the game right now, we've got Daofu on a couple different Sentinels. We've got some items on the Udyr. We're trying to be a little bit of a lawnmower right now.
Hellions have become my new favorite opener, just because Kled has become, he's such a beast when it comes to holding on to those AD items. He doesn't even need his horsey chocobo thing. Look at that. He's DB, still alive and kicking. As we go and check in with Jose, who has already hit the stimmy before stage 4. And maybe he's kind of reliving how that last lobby went, wishes he got further. But Zeke Slam, Last Whisper Slam, now finding what he's doing with this cloak, or the Negatron cloak. So is he going for BT? Is he going for Hurricane? Is he just going for a tank item? But for Assassins, you don't really need someone to tank, because everyone's jumping in the back. You just need a distraction.
So we're going to be below 20 HP again, or about 30 HP. This might be a difficult round to win, especially with the tier 2 Sentinels in the front line. And the Lucian, I guess, has a really big problem with that little legend, is what I saw. Can't shoot the little legend, guys. That's not okay. As the Lucian should be able to come right back, no problem. And Jose going to drop to 21 HP, and that might not even be it just yet. We might be at like 15 or lower by the end of this.
I'm starting to get real. I've seen Jose come back from worse, and I think either maybe one more loss or he might do a big roll down before we hit Wolves. I don't think he can afford. His board is not very strong. His damage is coming from an Irelia, which is a good item holder, but not inherently a damage dealer. So I wonder what the timing is for this. I think he just picked up a glove, maybe. I think that was a glove. So QSS wouldn't be bad, especially when his Nocturne has been so susceptible to CC before. But you don't have a second damage item. So he's going for IE, actually. I just noticed the sword now. So IE being your second one. But when is this roll down happening?
Should be soon. Probably after the
We'll find out next episode.
Probably after the Radiant Blessing, to be honest with you. For our friends at home, you can look over at the HP totals and see when things get tier 2'd, when we're off that board. You can also hover over the screen on your computer with your mouse, and you can follow all of the players and casters on Twitch as well. So if you want to support those participating in Fight Night Rising, many stars are born out of Fight Night Rising. Ramkev comes to mind. Goobums have been here a couple times. And it's been absolutely amazing so far. So if you want to follow all of that, Fight Night Rising, hosted by Wisdom Gaming, cover over all of those pictures and follow us. But back to this game, we've got Jewel Gauntlet and a Shojins now, and that should do enough for Rayo to either like win out rounds like this or lose by only 1 or 2 units. We'll see how consistent we can start going, as Jose, single digit HP, might not even make it to the PvE round. I do think we saw a Radiant Whisper maybe that got popped out. Where else are we going to go here? If we're going to see Vel'Koz, might be the Hextech Lifeblade.
It's tough because I feel like Hextech really locks you into Vel'Koz. I feel like he's the best and one of the few users of it, while as maybe Radiant Hodge opens you up to Kayle or other units that use hybrid damage, your AD and AP. But with the Shojins, the JG, I mean, your only options were maybe kind of the best AP comps being Heimer or Vel'Koz or a Teemo. And, you know, Rayo has the HP, but in 7th place, so doesn't want to mess around with looking towards a Kayle. So this is going to turn into a Vel'Koz, but how and when are you going to hit it when you're at level 6? Should not, and hope to not lose any more HP at this point, because being sub 40, okay, maybe you're like, yay, we get a stimmy, we get a power spike from that. But this will end up being a loss for Rayo, as the Varus is the last one left, and there's just so many tanks.
Jose won, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to try not to say Jose's name again for the next, like, 3 rounds. Let's see if I can do that. I obviously really like
This
watching.
is the Jose fan club stream. I don't know what you guys are here for.
There's just... It's cool to have someone be able to play a certain comp as well as that so consistently over a period of time. As through the scouting, though, there are some strong comps out there. I saw some Heimerdingers. We have a Draven and an Aphelios option available for one of our players as well. And we're going to continue to scout as the Wolves start attacking. QSS potential. We've got IE potential, Bloodthirster potential. Just potential with these items, but not anything that's necessarily like best in slot right now, because we need our Vel'Koz to make that happen.
But we hit Redeem 6, which is going to help out a lot. Now, Rayo is probably hoping for more tank items, or just... because the glove is not going to contribute to a whole lot in this case. Even just a belt would have been nice to get a Zeke's for a Vel'Koz. You can turn that sword into some kind of utility. Deciding to turtle everybody up, and especially with that Leona one, you don't want a frontliner even with that Sunfire, because she's going to crumble like paper. But we'll see how long this front line can survive, as most of them are 1-star except the Aatrox. Even the Aatrox got nerfed in the B patch. And at least the Ashe eats that Thrush hook like a champ, but this Aphelios is doing work.
Oh, but someone's putting in overtime, and it's actually the Varus. Hufflepuff, 15 points. I feel like Varus would be Hufflepuff. I don't know why. But yeah, totally Hufflepuff. I think it's because he's yellow in the redeem trait right now. As we move over to Draco, who is running a Nightbringer. I mean, if a Slytherin's going to run any type of comp, it's going to be a Nightbringer comp or Forgotten, right? And we do have one of each going onto the board, but we're going to move in with our Varus right now, as we've got a baby brigade on the board, a bunch of tier 1 units with Mama Sejuani there leading the charge.
I feel like there's a lot of useless things on this bench. Like, why do we have a Callista? Why do we care about this Viego? The thinking about Mystics, maybe seeing how many Vel'Kozes are starting to form. So yeah, I definitely think this board is weak. Now, Draco has HP to play with if he wants to keep up the slosh streak for maybe a round or two more. But the more you lose HP, the more stressful and the less room you have to wiggle to upgrade your comp. Now, Jose's on last life, and look who Draco is facing. It's Jose.
Yeah. Mr. Nocturne coming in hot once again. Gonna win out Nocturne 2. This lobby a little slow on the slower side, even though Jose did fall super quickly to the bottom of the leaderboard. We have locked this in, and we only have, we have good units on the field, but that was dominant for the Nocturne, as the Syndra going to throw the Lucian away on that board. And that's something we're going to see a lot of, is Syndra peeling for a unit like Vel'Koz potentially.
And I like that Jose, once he got his Radiant item, went for the Radiant Banshees, giving that spell shield to the entire team. One of the best Radiant items you can get, especially for that composition. Now you have 2 Reforgers. And the only thing I can think about reforging is if you hate the Sunfire late game, that's an option. Of course, deciding that because we can't find the Aphelios, we want to stick to 10 gold, is going to use the Nico on that. There's a world where you can reforge the Shojins if you don't care about that and go for more tank items, but the toss-up from the Diana is pretty crucial to buy time for Aphelios, so not going to do that quite yet.
Okay, this front line, though, that Kled can be seriously strong if it's able to ramp up. Still not even through the initial shielding. And if we're able to get some stacks on this Kled, that's going to be a pretty nice go-around for it. But unable to actually cause anything to happen. This Aphelios too, already at 165 on the Deathblade, and we have the healing with the Hodge. Everything's feeling pretty good. I wonder how many people have actually used their rerolls right now. Looks like Shining Star has already used both of them. Maybe that is why we have our particular emblems that we do. We have a Sentinel emblem, I believe, on Hecarim. Or that was Knight. That was a Knight emblem. So we're good. 4 Knights, 4 Cavs. The backline's going to be doing the damage.
Yeah, I remember that being around for a while because I was like, damn, Knight, Cav, and it's a Hecarim. That boy is thick. But Chewy just picked up a Teemo well, and I'd be curious to see, oh man, when you pick up a Teemo from Carousel with a sword, Shojins, whatever else, would be huge. Now Shining Star picked up a Rod, and I'm still figuring out the damage direction. So we have DB, we have Hodge. Those are pretty good on Kayle, pretty good on Aphelios. We have a pretty solid front line. We already have an Aphelios in. We only have 3 Nightbringer, looking for maybe that 4th one. I think Aphelios at the very least needs 4 Nightbringer, but there's also another Aphelios player in there. So maybe this is why Shining Star is struggling to find this Aphelios too.
Yeah, we got a little dizzy there. We're at least going to help the Aphelios hold on to these items, which I think could go on Kayle a little later. I think that's the direction that we're going. We didn't hit the Kayle, but we do have a nice front line. Anytime you see all of those knights, 6 knights, means that there's going to be a lot to cut through. So things like you're seeing this Lucian, things like Draven are going to have a really hard time against this composition. This is what winning by attrition looks like. As
Knight
you even have
6 doesn't die.
you even have the redemption on the Hecarim. So, not only are you going to get healing, you're also going to get damage mitigation from that redemption, as well as that, isn't the most exhilarating way to win in the world, but a win's a win.
And Knights end up being one of the strongest front lines that you can get, besides Revenant in the very late game, because it's a trait that applies to every single unit rather than just the units that are Knights. So Knight 6 provides a damage block for all units, and usually you only see Knight 4, your 4 Knight Jacks, 4 Knights with Jacks, or 4 Knights with Kayle. And it's something that you can incorporate almost any carry with. But I haven't seen Knight 6 in a long time. And you just saw the power of that, of how it blocks, 80% of the damage that is coming in. But you only have an Aphelios 1. So one bad running with the Aphelios, and this comp does no damage. So as long as the Aphelios stays alive, this should be fine for Shining.
So the crazy thing, too, is that because we still have some tier 1 units, the Knight 6 is actually mitigating the Giantslayer. It's going to work a lot better on the Hecarim, but it got stuck on some tier 1 units, as these things aren't indestructible, as we see as we speak. A lot more consistent damage coming in from the Lucian, but we already saw if the Giantslayer wasn't working, it got hooked on the Leona for just a tad bit, and then when those are tier 2 units, it's just going to be even longer, but we do need to find damage, right? You can only win death by 1,000 paper cuts if you have enough paper to use to cut people with, and right now we're running out of paper. We have some very weak units for this point in time on the board. We are in first place, so we're feeling okay about that, but like you said, there is an Aphelios 2 player here already, so it looks like we are in the midst of transitioning again, or pivoting again. I definitely feel that we're looking for a Kayle. Aphelios can work for now, but we're still looking for that Kayle.
And 40 HP is just such a weird HP when you're thinking, okay, can I go to 9 with this or not? And I think below 50 HP, and unless you're win streaking, the answer is probably no. So now you're rolling at level 8 with a 5% chance to get a Kayle, and it might happen, it might not. Because I don't think there's any other Kayle players that I know of right now, but at least starting to upgrade your front line is good. But Rel seems like that's going to be your main tank item holder.
Yeah, better
thinking about
too.
Where this Radiant Redemption is going.
Yeah, we've got the Garen for the eventual Kayle as well. We're going to use our Sejuani. What that tells me is we are not confident in this Kayle anymore, which means that we're going to splash the Nightbringer in and give ourselves that shielding. But you're, again, seeing exactly how strong this can be, and even through the magic damage at that point in time, it's just time after time for our carries in the backline. And just imagine if this was a Kayle where we'd be at right now. Right, it would just be absolutely destroying. So the rest of the lobby should feel thankful to the Mort God right now that we haven't gotten a single one just yet, let alone anything else. But now we have some emblems coming up.
Seems a simple Guardian Angel. I mean, he doesn't have any of the other synergies besides like a Brawler of Sejuani, and that extra couple hundred HP is not going to help you in the late game. But sometimes I like to throw a GA on a tank, especially an important one like Rel, especially when your carry's all full. And there is the Kayle we've been waiting for. Does it receive only damage? Are we thinking about a GA? That is the question.
Yeah. Brain cells are working together right now.
Vroom, vroom.
Brain cells go burr right now for Shining Star. And we're going to leave the Deathblade and the GA on the bench. We're going to get a little bit more context before we put it in. I think it's going to be Deathblade. Yeah, and then GA on a tank.
Because who else is going to use it, you know?
And so this should be a lot better than the Aphelios. We'll see when the transitions happen. Nice ult from the Rel, keeping that Kayle safe.
Daofu's Lucian with the Radiant QSS. It's completely surrounded, though. And that, I think Radiant QSS is, 30 seconds or something? It's just like most of the fight. But if you're surviving for that long, that means this Kayle is going to ruin your day. And that's a big unit loss for Daofu, propelling Shining Star in first place. And now all he needs to do is either look for more Kayles. I think he's way too far to think about 9. But at the very least, you think about, can I get more Kayles? That seems to be the win con for him.
So this Radiant Redemption is also MVPing right now. Just it's the Knights are already hard to get through. You put the Redemption on, it's gonna be even tougher. It's like when you like heat things up, sometimes they get stronger, right? I feel like it's kind of the same thing in this context. But we have some good front lines. Unfortunately, the tier 2 front line is with the Kayle, and that's the worst case scenario for a lobby, as we are going to get some eliminations here. We have Draco and Chewy at 4 and 3 HP right now, but we're going to see this Lucian get caught up. Is it going to be enough? It's actually going to be the Galio that might carry this at the end of the day. Lots of damage. Redemption's going to be there. The Gargoyle Stoneplate's the reason why we're still alive. But we weren't able to take down that Senna, but it was pretty cool to see that Galio smack those units right there. And in the midst of all of that crazy fighting, Jose got 8th. So Jose is in 8th place, Chewy in 7th, Draco in 5th, both of them ending up getting eliminated. And Jose, for the first time, I think, since they've gotten here, at risk to potentially not come back next week.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance you turn things around in the 3rd and 4th lobby, but that's what happens when you force the same board. But with Jose, still has a pretty high success rate, so we'll have to see at the points at the very end how this looks like. So take a look at the board of Daofu, who has the Zephyr, thinking about wanting to Nico it, but now this doesn't give you a lot of flexibility on where you want to place this Rel, because you kind of want to stick her in the front line. You're not going to be able to place her in the, at least ideally, not in the corner to toss up these backline carries. So you're going for a frontline unit, which I guess isn't a horrible idea with now these Revenant units getting in your way.
I think Kayle wins this lobby. I'm willing to bet $1.20 on it.
Damn, that's our whole paycheck. What are you doing? No, just kidding.
I don't know what job you're working, but I would probably talk to somebody
station.
about that. Someone is skimming some money off the top from you, Jennifer. You should look into that. Because that is not what I'm getting paid. And so we're going to see the Sentinel comp do pretty well here. We have Akshan pushing in some damage. Actually really interested to see what the final damage chart's going to be behind the Lucian. It's going to be the Galio actually coming in with the 2nd most damage. And the other thing that, of course, Shining Star loses there, because I am the ultimate curse to anyone I think is doing well. But yeah. Thanks. The overarching theme here, too, is that we have Titans showing up on attack damage units. You see it a lot on Jax. We're seeing it on the Lucian this time around. Very good on attack damage units. Just a little bit of extra defensive statistics, plus a little extra sweetener along with it is, if you're alive for longer, you're going to be able to do more damage. And there's a point where burst versus, a smaller damage over a long period of time will even out, and that damage over time will actually exceed what you're able to do burst-wise. So this is going to be the biggest test for the Kayle. But if Shining Star gets to this Kayle too, I think this is their lobby.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the Titans in a second. I'm really curious about if Daofu's going to end up winning this, because Lucian carry just hasn't been meta for a while, but now with these buffs, especially the rework around Sentinels, now the Sentinel trait is going towards the unit that has all the items or the most amount of attack speed. But the issue is, if you don't do enough damage, this Kayle will outrun you. And that's a 4th place for Daofu. Not bad, though. After a 1st place, you'll definitely stay in the top 4. So Daofu definitely in the running for coming back next week. We're left with our top 3, Shining, Rayo, and Fears.
You want to try that again?
Yo. Rayo.
Rayo.
Yo.
All right. Shining Rays. Fears meh. It's a whole sentence. Get it? Anyway, I'm sorry, everybody.
Yeah, I get it.
My
vroom,
sinuses
vroom.
hurt. Thank
Burr.
you. Brain cell go for me. But now, Fears looking at a Deathblade and a potential reroll. Cannoneer Pike. This is just a little bit of desperation right now. The fact that this is 3rd place goes to show that some of the lobby just wasn't super strong against this particular comp. And now we're starting to turn around, though, as we do remove all of the items on the Lucian. We're going to put the Deathblade Last Whisper Demon Slayer on. The cannon the Cannoneer emblem will hang out on the bench. That will be going somewhere very, very shortly. It's going to go back onto the pike that they're just going to remake, put the Titans on. I might have put the Titans on, someone like the Viego just to get a little bit of extra ability with him, or just time, but to each their own. We might not be able to see what the other side would look like here soon, because I think this Lucian is going to be fine. Really wanted to leave the board there for a second, but we are able to pull off the win. 15 HP to 12, 28 at the top. Everyone within 16 HP of each other. That's one round at this point in time.
Now you're seeing the power of the changed Giant Slayer, or I guess the quote adjustment, as they called it in the patch notes. So the bonus damage threshold from 1750 down to 1600, but the scaling did get a bit better. So the scaling from 10 to 20%, and the high damage scaling from 75 to 70. So I've been wondering how people were going to experiment around the Giant Slayer, and turns out that Lucian did a lot of work with that. We're left with still our top 3, and the HP is being pretty close. So, we'll see how comfortable Shining Star is at the top, but right now we're looking at Fears versus the Kayle board. Now, can you access the Kayle? Well, the Viego will start turning them one by one, but as time goes on, this Kayle is now at her second ascension. We need to stop her, and we did.
Oh my goodness. Anytime you see the Kayle, it really is all about getting access, right? The Kayle here accessed Rayo's HP pretty easily there, as the Rayo gets knocked out. And Fears and Shining Star will be our last 2 players. Both of them have, assuming Fears doesn't get wiped, will have another life. This might go to round 7, depending on how this rolls out. Still unable to find a second Kayle. By the way, for Shining Stars, that Nikos has been on the bench for the majority of the game. I believe it was actually one of the opening rounds for... Oh, no, it was the Radiant Blessing is where the Nikos came out. So we've been here for a while.
Now you're it's all about positioning at this late game and just needing one more Kayle with the Nikos to get this Kayle fully going. And this Kayle is winning fights without being 2-star. So we'll see, if that... Is there an action? Okay, I don't see him spinning yet.
That's the problem.
No, you want an action. I was like, where?
yeah. It's looking at where this could definitely find a little bit more power. That's definitely going to be it. But we do have access to the Kayle now, as it gets CC'd a couple times, so we are already fully charged. Once we start going again, it's going to be over, and we really want that Akshan. Not only is it going to proc our Cannoneer emblem a lot more, it's just a better, potential game-winning unit. Still no Kayle on the board right now. A couple emblems, but I assume that will probably go defensive, as Redemption was the item both of them wanted, and it's going to be Ionic for Fears, who has 1 HP
there it is.
remaining.
And now you're like, okay, I want Garen 2 and Kayle. I want the Lamborghini and the Bugatti, like we just want it all. This board has reached its limit, and a pretty high limit at that. Ooh. So just focusing on positioning on the other side. We found the action. We're putting the Cannoneer on him with the Hurricane and the Titans. And there's a Nico on the Kayle. This is the final fight, and we'll see if those upgrades for Fears will be enough, because 1 HP ain't a lot.
It's exactly 1. As the Redemption is going to go onto the Rel. Is it going to be the time of the Kayle? Is it the time and place? Right now, the Akshan is in the back line, but not a lot of damage at all. Almost might as well just be poking the Leona. And now we've got the Kayle starting to ramp up. There is just too much to go through. Knight's Kayle will win a lobby today. And Kayle's starting to show up slowly but surely here, Jen.
There's our Shining Star right there, even with the leftover Reforger and the little lemon duck chicken. That's my favorite, because it looks like a lemon.
Did just you go to preschool?
I'm not sure if my mom forgot to bring me. So.
We've got to review your animals during the halftime break, Jen.
Sejuani's on a dog, okay? It's doggo, big chonky doggo, and that was a lemon duck.
Okay.
Tell me otherwise.
I'm not. You're right. I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Everyone else is wrong. That's the case
yes.
here. But Kayle, I mean, it almost like the second we saw that comp, right? We were like, the second Kayle happens, they're gonna win. Also, you know, once that Kayle 2 popped up, it was like no chance.
Hey, we get to take a look at the scores of how this is shaped up. Shining Star with that first place started with the Knight 6 Aphelios item carry, found the Kayle, even at level 8, I think, was able to turn this all around. We had Fears at second place, who started with the 4 Brawler Yasuo item carrier, and then ended up with a Lucian Action 4 Cannoneer. So a lot of variety in our top 4 comps today.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2 lobbies in a row, 4 different comps made top 4. No Dravens this time. And that's the other like really cool thing that's happened is, you know, we had a Draven get second place in the first lobby, and there, I don't believe, was a Draven in this lobby. And that's just how fluid this meta can be when you get your Radiant Blessing, when you get your Radiant items. Things can really change drastically. So, you know, even if you're Draco right now at 4 points, you are not out of the running for that top 3 or 4 for that money. So, you know, don't be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Just because you're in 8th place now doesn't mean you're going to finish in 8th place later. We've seen it happen here before.
So after these 2 lobbies, that's how the score shaped up, but we have 2 more lobbies to go. We are halfway through the fun, and you won't want to miss the next half. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Fight Night Rising 1-2 Punch. We're going into our second half of the lobbies. Third and fourth coming soon. Boop.
Yeah.
Kayle won. Kayle didn't get 8th yet. Well, Assassin sure did.
Assassin sure did. Jose sure did bottom out. That nosedive never came out. It just was crash at the end of it. So Jose in 8th place on the brink of elimination.
Hey, here's how the scores have turned out. If you are just tuning in, shame on you. But we still appreciate you being here. Daofu, who is returning from last week, still in first place with 16 points, but just by a little bit. But who is not so creeping up to that top 4 is our other returning player, Jose, who is in that bottom 4 spot, not having that ticket cashed in yet.
True. Tickets right now can be pretty expensive. Actually, we pay you for the ticket if for winning at Fight Night Rising. So, I mean, everyone's still playing for that money too. And I know every time I get to tell my parents I'm making money off of video games, you know, it's always a good feel good moment. But talking about this. Talking about this particular lobby, it's been really interesting as it seems like we have like 8 different, like sometimes we'll have a couple of type A players, a couple type B players. Seems like we have like 8 different styles kind of coming in here with a lot of different preferences. So we've gotten to see full power comps a couple times, which has been cool.
Yeah, and I've been talking to players about sort of what their play style is, and the way they describe it is really interesting. So I kind of defined it as aggressive, being slamming items early, you know, really pushing levels early, maybe sacrificing some eco to push those levels. But a lot of people kind of define how aggressive they are either based on their own win streak or based on the lobby. So if the lobby is much more difficult, because your opponents are really what define how your success at the end of the day. So sometimes people are telling me they're aggressive based on the lobby. If the lobby's aggressive, then that demands you to be aggressive. But then some people tell me, well, depends on my streak. If I'm losing, we're going to lose with pride. But if we're win streaking, then we're going to be aggressive. So I like kind of the adaptation or the flexibility some of these players bring to the table.
This has been a pretty patient lobby, just in general. A lot of comps not getting locked in until a little bit later. So the fact that no one's really pushing the early game right now might actually be an opening. So if y'all are wondering what we mean by pushing the early game, it's taking HP from the rest of the lobby. So you have like a 100 to like second place would be like 70 to 60 HP, right? And then you lose a lot at the end game, but you've developed so much of a lead, right? You can kind of stall out in the mid game, get your units, and potentially push forward to a game-winning lobby or team comp at the end at around like, if you can find it by like 4-2, that might work out for you. So a lot of people, though, choosing to not play some of these more aggressive comps. They're just not as good right now. You know, you think of Rats, for example, the Hellions just haven't been played at all. We haven't seen a single Tristana so far in these team comps. So it's been a lot of attack damage thus far with a splash of Vel'Koz and a very sad Karma as well.
I mean, there was just a time where the meta was a lot of reroll comps. Your Yasuo, your Riven, your Tristana, Misfortune. She still hangs around, but not really as much. I feel like the patches recently have been really nerfing, especially the most recent one nerfed Riven and Yasuo specifically. And I still say this because I was the Riven player that cared about that. I remember one of the fight nights, I think the one I was casting with Crowan, I was telling one of the players ever, where I was saying it in general in the cast that, 3-star Riven, nobody contests Dawnbringers, go for it. And then one of the players was like, hey, I listened to what you said, I did it, and I won Fight Night, thanks. And I, big thumbs up. But now I hope ever, if you're listening, don't go Riven, my dude. Riven sucks now.
Riven, if you get an early Riven, for example, right? Because it's all about hitting certain power levels at certain checkpoints, right? So usually certain comps will be at around this level by this point. But if for some reason, right, you get 2 Rivens from an orb in the early game, and you're able to get Riven 2 at like 2-3, right? You just push, right? Like you're birthing a baby. Yeah, like you push that hard to try to like take some HP away from the rest of that lobby, because that power advantage only lasts for a certain amount of time. And if you're able to extend that advantage by locking it earlier, you're going to reap the reward. So it is still possible.
Name a better duo, Jose and Open Fording, just putting the single unit out. And I feel like there's a way he could put more units and at least hope to not get 4-0'd.
Look at how much gold he's got, though.
It is a lot. I guess maybe you're
right.
That's
a lot of
maybe
gold.
I gotta subscribe to the Church of Jose and Open Fording. I know you were trying to show me the ways of Open Fording, but you do it in an 8th place fashion.
Thanks. Oh my god.
So Shining Star with the DP Rage Blade Slam is quite aggressive.
So are you, apparently. I didn't know that it was the library was open and I was gonna get read to today.
Hey, Jose got 8th place too. Okay, you guys could be friends.
Okay, Lemon. Okay.
Just the one lobby.
That's true. I got it all the way up to I gained a lot of LP open fording Vel'Koz not too long ago, meaning last set. But anyway, back to the game and not LemonKiwi making me realize how little of a human being I am. Just kidding. We're gonna see the Tristana finally, right? Like I said before, you only see it in the early game. With the Deathblade, still might not be enough with the Kalista. Depends on when the ultimates pop open, but no ultimate timing coming in from Fears. That could have been a win there, but the timing just wasn't quite there. A little bit too much from the Tristana.
Yeah, that's what sucks about Tristana and Action when you go up against them, is they just run away from you and they just outrange you. So this poor little chonky Gragas could not keep up. But what I do love is a Hodge Slam, one of the most flexible damage items, if not the most flexible damage item. AP and AD got lifesteal in there, and Kalista these days is one of the best openers due to the Legionnaire rework or just the Legionnaire buffs around lifesteal. So kind of figuring who is surrounding that. Well, and it seems like at least you got the Legionnaire too, but there's a brand in that shop.
Yeah, before the Aatrox nerfs, and I believe was Kalista on that B patch, but there was a reroll Legionnaire comp with like tier 3 Aatrox, Leona, and Kalista that a lot of people were running. It was like the tanky Aatrox with like good attack speed on Kalista. We haven't seen it just yet. We've actually never seen it we never saw it on Fight Night. It seems to be a little bit more of like a ladder type of composition, but it could still make an appearance. Always got to say that is a possibility, but that'll probably turn into something else a little bit later, as Rayo is gonna get beaten by our friend Daufu for the large rod, but we are sitting at level 5. A couple of us are at level 5. Seems like 3 of us right now who are trying to push some levels, and it makes sense because all 3 of them are in the top 4 right now.
And Rayo is one of those people when I spoke to before the show about how kind of a unique way of defining how aggressive he is. And when I asked him, how aggressive are you? How passive are you? He says he really just focuses on adapting to his win streak. If he's winning, he wants to continue that. He's going to push levels. He's going to roll whatever it takes. But if he loses, then he's going to adapt to that and really just plays his eco around that. But so he feels really strong about having a redeemed 2-star Varus Hodge start. So now he's trying to push his win streak. And even thinking he's going to win this sitting at 9 gold, he's not going to sell a unit, knows he's going to win this with the Sunfire Slam 2 at the front so good early, will get himself to 10 gold and a 3 win streak.
This is looking like a Kayle comp already. We'll see if that's going to be the end game and goal, but there's really only one person who uses Hodge as well as Kayle, and that's Kayle. Right? So whenever I see the Hodge, I mean, you can make arguments for other people, right? It's a great kind of like secondary choice. Like, say you can't get your Bloodthirster, but you're offered a Hodge, right? You can do that. It can be good on things like Jax if you're not offered some of these other items. But for best in slot, Kayle is one of the best. So I can definitely see, especially since Kayle did just win that lobby, and it wasn't really that close once we got that Kayle too. Right? I would expect at least 1 or 2 of our friends to be running that comp or want to run it. And this is a great opening for it.
Now you have the second ranger in there, probably thinking about upgrading this to an ash just because it has a bit better utility. But since you have this forgotten here with the knight 2 with the thresh I feel is like this walking zephyr. Everyone is just hating on thresh because it takes out your backline unit for so many seconds and crucial seconds this early in the game. And that alone will get Rayo another win. And going into Krugs, this is starting to be some perfect TFT from him.
Yeah, I mean, I bet Thresh uses, those leashes on children. Right? I bet I bet like if like Thresh is at an amusement park with the kids, all those kids are gonna be wearing those like leashes that look like monkeys, right on their backs.
The name tags on the kids too.
Yeah,
if you forget what they're called.
Yeah, I experienced some leashing back in the day. Press 1 in chat if you're surprised. Silence. So, Rayo now.
Only child.
I do
Over
have
here.
I do have a sister, but 7 years older. I got to experience some of that only child syndrome later on in life, as I was still wearing
You look
a
like a
leash
runner.
at 16. Thank you. I used to be. I hated every second of it.
Not that kind of runner, but
Oh. Okay. R/whoosh.
Yeah. Or vroom. Or burr.
Just like your brain cell.
for us.
All right, so we have the bow, we have the Bloodthirster, and the Rage Blade on the Yasuo. We're going to get rid of it right now. Rage Blade, Bloodthirster. Where is that?
I feel like Olaf would be a fine carrier for this.
Yeah, you
with
can
the
put
Skirmisher
it
3.
on the Olaf for sure. Maybe a Jax a little bit later. Jax doesn't necessarily need that Rage Blade, but an early Bloodthirster slam is pretty intriguing, and we are going to put it on the only unit that can really use it right now, which is going to be that Olaf. So this might be an Aphelios coming up, potentially. That's someone who can use both of these items quite well.
Yeah, pretty much any AD carry is fine with the BT. It's just the Rage Blade that we're trying to figure out, and that kind of starts to narrow down your options. Interested that he went and leveled up to 6, sacrificing his 30 gold eco just to put in another Sentinel. It wasn't like adding a whole lot. I think it ended up being a Pike, and not only is he going to lose this round, going to lose it by 5 units or so. So that was not what Daofu was looking for. Really leveled aggressively in order to keep up that 2-win streak, but now that's been canceled.
Leveled up aggressively and loses. That's the worst. One of the worst feelings in TFT. Now we're going over to Draco right now, who's had a little bit of a rough day. And right now, it's got to turn around. This is the lobby that Draco needs to make something happen. We should be pushing a little bit harder. We might be taking a little bit more risks because we have to first or eighth at this point in time to get into the top 4 potential. Top 3, remember, do come back. It looks like Jose is running a Nocturne once again. Got 8th place with it last time for the first time. So mad respect, actually, to be able to run it back, because I know me, sometimes I can get scared off of a comp like that sometimes.
Yeah, and Draco. Don't think we've got to see a lot of him, but when it came to the last lobby, he had actually Aphelios carrying that DB, as you pointed out, kind of that Aphelios direction, and then pivoted to Kayle. I think he ended up in 6th place there, and then when it came to the other lobby, he got in 8th place because he went Karma, the Karma curse. So I think Draco has learned his Karma lesson and is now feels like he's focusing a lot more on AD comps.
Yeah, Karma now playing for the band Soulflare instead of being good at TFT is the reasoning right now as we pick up the Nocturne. You know, if I was in this lobby, I'd probably pick up every Nocturne I see if I have the gold and then just sell it at the end of the round to block our friend Jose. Obviously, we don't need to do it again. 8th place, shocking, coming in from Jose, but Assassin should be like that, to be completely honest with you. I think a really good balanced Assassin comp is one that is going to be a little bit more coin flippy than the rest.
Yeah, it's just really hard to execute because it's not even just putting your carry in a corner and then, or just picking one of the corners. It's really, you got to target somebody specific, and how you put in the organization of your backline, because you're backlining all your assassins. You need a distraction at the front line. You need kind of utility. You can stack some Zeeks. You can stack trap claws around it. So We didn't get to see too much of Jose and how that 8th place happened, but it has to do with his love of open forting and getting carousel priority so he can really get best in slot Nocturne. That seems to be his win con. But then his lose con is getting to 20 HP at stage 4 and not being able to position for the RNG that is your opponent. You can only predict so much, and one bad loss or even 2 bad losses is what can cost Jose like an 8th place.
So we were going to take a Vel'Koz and a bow off of the carousel. So 4 gold too is going to be really nice. Jose, this is actually looking a lot better than the last game because we are 1 round later in terms of when we got our Radiant Blessing. This next round, 3-5, is when Jose wants it to happen. Last lobby where we got 8th, we were 2 rounds early. This time we're 1 round early. Last time we were 1 round early. What did we get? We got 4th. So this is already shaping up to be a little bit better. We'll check in on our assassin player when we see the matchup. But yeah, we have the Aphelios. That is exactly where this comp ended up going. We have a pretty okay front line right now. And again, with not a ton of units on the field, with most people at level 6 or 7 at this point in time, especially against a level 6 comp, this Aphelios might do some major destruction.
And you're just wondering, like, where is this damn Sejuani? And where is Diana? Well, Diana, not as much, because she's a 4 cost. You only have 5% chance. So maybe looking towards that level 7, level 8, getting that Diana, getting your 4 Nightbringer. I feel like that's very much the minimum for Aphelios with that damage, with the shields that it provides. But at least balancing it out with a 2 brawler frontline is doing the job just right. Now you're looking for a Sejuani and a Diana to replace the Gragas and the Nunu, but even a 2-star Nunu will at the very least take out 1 unit because it just gobbles them all up. So hey, I'm totally down with what Shining is doing. You're on a 5 streak before Wolves. This is the best you can ask for.
Okay, so the other thing that we all have to recognize is that Shining also already completed the carry items. Right, so we are unable to put a Radiant item on our carry there. That's probably going to be fine. I do like using these Radiant items for defensive or utility aspects. For example, Banshee Silence is one of my favorite items in the game. I really like the Titan's Vow Radiant as well. You can put that on most auto attack damage carries if there are no other options available, but it's going to be the team Banshee's Veil. Everyone getting a free CC immunity. Just one, but everyone's going to get it.
And maybe there's a world where you could have double hodged. It feels so bad when you slam a hodge and you're like, there's no way, there's a 1 in a million chance I'm going to get a Radiant Hodge. And that is like the best Radiant item for Kayle. And the fact that he was like, man, it's right there, but I don't want a double hodge. I think maybe a Rageblade double hodge would have worked, but then you're sacrificing the utility of something else, whether a DB, or a Deathblade, or a GA, or something else that can just help that Kayle stay alive or do damage before she fully ascends. So the Banshee is going to help him have the spell shield into his entire team, and including those knights or maybe redeem units that will protect this Kayle at the end of the day.
Yeah, Chewy at level 5 still, so we're definitely doing some type of rolling over there. Maybe we're doing the... I saw the Aatrox, so we're probably doing the Legionnaire hyper roll. Yep, there it is, as Callista is going to 3-star it. We'll see it the next time someone goes up or scouts Chewy. But now we're going to be riding along with Rayo right now, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s worst movie. Which is Radio. Anyone get that? Any boomers in the chat? Talk about people say the reconnaissance with Matthew McConaughey was pretty big. I think Cuba Gooding Jr. coming back was pretty impressive. Anyway, especially after Snow Dogs. Anyway, I've not ever had that conversation before, as we're moving into Vel'Koz now. I wonder if the Vel'Koz will stick around, or we're going to keep looking for our Kayle, because you can put the Hodge on the Vel'Koz.
And yeah, it's just keeping that on the Varus for now, because if you get rid of them, you either go to a 1-star Varus and you're putting the eggs in the 1-star Vel'Koz basket. Yeah, I do agree, because of that Hodge having AP and AD. That's a fine damage item to put on. Maybe you can even greed for the next couple of rounds to see if you can get specifically AP items for that Vel'Koz. But now we get to go and check in on Fierce, who we haven't seen at Jack's board yet, and that's exactly what he's running.
Good point, actually. Titans, the Radiant version on it as well. So good on Jax, specifically. Already one of the beefier carries, especially since you're supposed to frontline it, as we do get to see the Radiant Blessing, and it is a loaded dice. So we'll get to see a lot of our late game players use that later on. So, like, for example, in that last game with Kayle, that loaded dice might have been a really great way to get that a little bit early. We might have ended that a little earlier on, as Chewy going to continue rolling, getting that Poppy 3. So we've got Callista 3 and Poppy 3, Leona 3 now. And I did not see the Aatrox pop up, but that would be the last kind of, you ask and you shall receive, as Chewy gonna tier 3 units level up to 6, as our friend Dalfu gonna have over 70 gold and really doesn't need to do anything with it right now.
Yeah, for this solution, I know there's like a whole matrix. By the way, if you guys ever have issues with dice roll matrix, just Google one. People do the math for you. You know, my mom forgot to bring me to preschool. I don't know what animals are, so I'm not expected to know math. But for Lucian, the dice roll matrix is to at least put that on Tristana, or even Senna, Misfortune, some of these Cannoneers, to find that Lucian. Because you put it on a Sentinel, there's going to be a lot of Sentinels popping up. So you kind of want to target something like Tristana. But we'll see if that ends up being the case. Maybe you want to wait till level 8 so that you kind of push more chances to get that Lucian dice roll, if that's even something he wants to invest.
All right, so we have our front lines coming through. Galio definitely finding himself with items in a lot of these knight front lines. I definitely see Galio with items in Kayle comps in particular, just to get, you know, that AoE going. You can even use things like a Gargoyle Stone Plate on Galio because of the ult that he uses. He's able to suck a lot of damage away from those carries. And when your carries are safe, your carries are doing damage, as our carry here is going to be the Nocturne, who has stabilized, no longer in last place. It's going to be our fellow Filipino friend, Dalfu, here in last place. We're kind of holding hands, but it's going to be the Assassin. Oh, that is a wipe, too. Ooh, that was close. Dalfu, 4 HP. Might not even make it to chickens, as Jose previously was the lowest we've seen at this point in time. 4 HP before this carousel might actually be the lowest HP total I've seen at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm really curious about Dalfu. Had a Lucian pair and just had to roll for Lucian 2 and sold the extra Lucian and is now thinking about pivoting to Aphelios with 4 HP. So we'll see how this goes, Cotton, but we're going to go check in on Draco, who has all his damage items slammed, thinking about what is left, picks up the bow, and we'll check in on his board in a second. But yeah, an action this early is huge. And you have the Radiant Titans. This must have been the Jax player, because we saw that Radiant Jax. This ended up on an action. And now there's kind of debate on, is Action 1-star any good? I personally think all he does is sneeze and cough on people, and, you know, not in the 2019 type of way. I don't think Action 1-star is very good. I prefer a 2-star 4-cost, but I know that's maybe controversial and people have different opinions. But for the case of Draco, he believes in the Action 1-star.
So controversial, yet so brave. Jennifer,
so brave.
LemonKiwi, pitch it.
Powerful.
I disagree with you wholeheartedly. Actually, and the reason is because of how he enables other people, right? Maybe itemizing it at this point in time might not seem like the best idea, but with this particular setup, it compensates for some of the nerfs that he's experienced in the past. You're not going to get a ton of swings. You're not going to get a ton of that kind of damage, but you are going to get these last, you know, kind of like these last whisper procs. And as, you know, the numbers go down, things get better and the Deathblade gets stronger. So we have the Akshan. You know, I think he might have heard you, Jen, you know, talking some
Take
smack.
that, caster.
Yeah.
He almost lost, though, because the Thresh almost pulled the action in front of the ulting Lucian. And I think if that would have happened like a second earlier, the action would have been dead. It's just a very squishy unit. But I think with how good these items are and how the Titan stacks that much, it's a great defensive item, but also a great offensive item. So I might have to eat my words just based on, I've never seen a Radiant Titans action, so I'll have to experiment with that. I've only ever used it on like a melee play carry like Jax. But now we get to check out the 4K stream of Fears. Whoa, I guess that's the Titans Jax player. So 2 people with the Radiant Titans.
Yeah, and this is a friendly assassin lobby, to be completely honest with you. No one really locking down this Nocturne in time. The Jax gets taken by Viego. Not completely, but it should just be a matter of time. Jax should be able to take down a couple more of these players, maybe all of them. Was it just the one that he needed as the Titans that's actually going to start helping out? Sorry, Jax, my boy. I apologize for doubting you there. The Bloodthirster was enough. Such a good item on that unit. And again, no attack speed on this Jax. You do not need it. And Titans on Jax, just so good. You get 25 stacks so quickly, not only because you're attacking really fast, but you're in the front line too. So you're going to be receiving that damage, and then you're going to be ramped up as you hit your 25 stacks. And you saw what happened. All of a sudden you have extra armor and magic resist, right? And you can, power through some units that you normally might not be able to. I could see this really helping out against like a Vel'Koz comp, for example.
Yeah, and I could also see the Sentinels maybe being whisked away for some Ironclads. I think generally you like to play Jax around a Rel and a Nautilus, especially how this lobby is primarily AD. So a lot of Aphelios, action, and things like that. So I'm wondering if these Sentinels are going to be moved out for some Ironclads. But speaking of something that's not AD, we can go and check out Rayo's board, who originally started off with a Hodge redeemed opener and has since now incorporated a Heimer and maybe still just looking for that Kayle.
We might be able to stick around on Heimer for just a tad bit. We've got the Renewer proc, because anytime you do get all 3 Revenants in, you just kind of want to keep using them, especially now that we have a Volibear 2 that's actually going to res and smack 2 times. That's crazy. But we have the Jax coming back again. And even, I actually think that Heimerdinger ult might have missed. I did not see the cross above the head. So the healing mitigation just did not happen. But yeah, Titan's Vow on the Radiant version on the Jax again, so good. Bloodthirster just going to make that even better. It's going to make him more of an off-tank bruiser like he is on Summoner's Rift. As we are going to get our loaded dice this time around, Jax is on the menu here as well, but we did just see the Jax 2. Where else are we going to go? We could loaded dice to try to find a Heimerdinger. We could potentially do it for someone else. We're thinking on the Heimerdinger right now.
Yeah, for Heimerdinger dice roll matrix, you're looking to kind of use that on a renewer because there's so little renewers, or you use it on a Spellweaver at a higher level, but he already has a Heimer, so it's maybe if you want to accelerate your rolling. I haven't seen kind of anyone use their dice roll, at least on screen yet. But we'll see how long this Heimer lasts. I think without Archangel, it just doesn't have as good of scaling. And when everyone gets so beefy late game, a Heimer 1 just gets one shot by the Aphelios Deathblade of Shining Star. So without that damage, Rayo's going to lose this one.
Yeah, Aphelios shooting actual stars out of that gun. That is why it hits so hard. Wow, 2 Jaximuses in this pack. I wonder if they're going to even pick it up. Jaximusi. As right now they're just in the pack. We could sell a couple units or sell something like one of these Jaxes, for example. But we're going to loaded dice nobody. We're still thinking about it, though. A lot of decisions being made. Picking up the Teemo, switching out the Syndra, maybe going to be putting in a couple Mystics. Because we haven't already bought those 2 Jaximusi, we probably won't, but we're keeping the option open.
Well, you have still 2 Knight in here. If you're going Invoker 4, it would help your cast a lot for Heimer, but it's how much do you want to invest? How are the stonks looking for a Heimer 1 with not best in slot items? So maybe thinking the better frontline would help maybe not lose as much health, but I think the 4 Invoker, the Syndra and the Karma comes in for, the Thresh and the Leona that is still hanging around this
see you later.
And the decision did not come quick enough. Rayo will fall to 7th place. Daofu at 8th, and Lurty very close to joining after losing that one, but unless Jose beats him there.
Yep. Second to sixth, separated by 15 HP, and then there's Fearsma at the top, on fire, doing a little bit of barbecue in. It's a pretty cool place, having some drinks over there, but no one else is invited at the moment. Fears really wants to try to stay up there, to try to stay in contention for that top 3. Love to see Draco there. Remember, Draco needed a top 4, top 3 to stay in contention here as well. We've gotten some flips in terms of who's at the top versus who's at the bottom in this lobby. So I'd be super intrigued to see where these scores end up coming up at the end, as this bench, even though not full, has a lot of money on it. 15 just in 5 cost units. And we're still looking for one more Kayle. That seems to be the name of the game. But our Aphelios is doing so well. No need to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, in my opinion.
Yeah, Aphelios, I feel like, is one of the units that does the best with a Deathblade. Whenever I get a Deathblade slam, I'm like, first thought is Aphelios. So it makes sense that you keep this on, especially when it's pretty much best in slot for Aphelios. And at a Kayle 1, maybe there's some controversy around, do you incorporate a Kayle 1 over a 2-star 4 cost? And in this case, I agree with what Shining Star is doing. The Kayle is just so squishy, while the Aphelios has multi-target and just shreds through everybody. So this will be a loss for Lurty and a 6th place finish for him, unless Jose loses. He does not, so Lurty with 6th place.
Yep, Chewy running the reroll, Legionnaire business. Closest comp that I think in the past has existed like that, as we finish in 5th place tied. We win the tiebreaker against Lurty. Oh, that feels bad. That actually might be a big deal, losing out on that 5th versus 6th place, as we now have our top 4. Fierce loses in that round. So this is really anyone's game. Jose at 3 HP might get 4th again. It might really be when Jose gets that Radiant Blessing at the end of the day. But lots of Titans on attack damage units. That Akshan still at tier 1. I think this Aphelios has a real shot to actually break out of the always the bridesmaid, never the bride fight night rising team comp right now.
Going up against Fears comfortably in 1st place with the Radiant Titans, and pretty much best in slot. I guess there's a few options for that 3rd damage item, whether you want Hurricanes, RFC, different stuff. Everyone has their preference. This Jax just needs time to ramp up, and this Jax can 1v8 if you threaten him too. And you see Shining is so confident in the win, he starts kind of scouting other boards, but I don't think I win until I take out the Jax. The Jax is the scariest one. It takes out the Nunu, goes after the Aphelios, and Shining Star is still in. And our top 4 is still there.
Woo-wee. Okay, so now all of these early game units that, you lose by 1 or 2 back in round 2, 3, or 2, 4, right? Coming back to haunt you right now, as Jose, Draco, and Shining Star all separated by 1 unit each, right? Draco and Jose separated by 1 unit, Shining Star and Draco separated by 1 unit. Still anyone's game, as it seems like we do have a rock, paper, scissors situation, and maybe the attrition that we did build up just enough when it comes to Fearsma in 1st place might be able to secure the lobby win, because this Jax can take the dub against most people on this board, especially with the support of this damage Gwen, which is the first time we've really seen it, but has definitely been talked about amongst a lot of players so far, as we're going to maybe tier 2 our Ivern. Such a great unit, always going to be something to think about, but we're just blocking it from our friends right now. I probably get baited into it because I am addicted to Ivern. I'm addicted to playing 3 Revenants. I don't play comps unless it's a 3 Revenant comp at the end of the day. So I understand the choice, though.
Gwen got some big damage buffs in this recent patch, and a lot of people are experimenting on putting AP on her and just letting her become now a new 5-cost AP carry. And this is what Fears is going for. Also got rid of the Sentinel. This is a question I asked earlier of when are these Irelias and stuff, when is this leaving to incorporate more Ironclads? I think he was looking for Rel, and that extra Ironclad helped a lot. Fears will be taken out another player. Now we're left with our top 2, Shining in 3rd and Draco with 4th.
Jose made it to the top 2 again. The run back after getting 8th place with this comp, runs it back to the top 2. Honestly, mad respect. I think that's really hard to do. I lose, I stub my toe in the morning and my week is done. Right. Right, like I can't come back from stuff like that. That's always been my weakness as like an athlete, right? Once you get into my head, or once I get into my head, it's over. And gotta love the fortitude so far that Jose has done, because I'd be so stressed running this comp, to be completely honest with you. But we do have a tier 3 Nocturne. This should do a much better job against the Jax, already doing a better job. But is CC'd but now is distracted. The Nocturne is on the Jax, and the Jax is down. This is going to be a Nocturne win. We're going to be at least one more round. Now that this Nocturne is a Nocturne 3, double Runins, by the way, I don't know if the Jax is going to be able to take it down. I think it's going to require a very lucky Gwen snap. And then after the Nocturne reses, the Jax will have to target it. And that's been the issue with a lot of these Nocturne comps, is they get the first kill, right? But after the res, after they, take their attention off of the Nocturne, that's when the Nocturne starts popping off, because they're already distracted. So it's after the first death that you really got to see where the Nocturne goes. That first death is just part of the check mark.
And he specifically placed the Gwen, the circles where the Nocturne was going to land, so trying to mitigate some of the damage of this Nocturne, but the Nocturne got moved to the left side at the last second, is harassing this backline. Here comes Jax after this Nocturne, still has the Revenant trait, so this Nocturne will be coming back in a second.
Yep, see?
And the Nocturne is... or not the Nocturne, the Jax got finished off at the second, and that's enough for Jose to take the lobby at a 3 HP comeback. I can't even believe that.
3 is
All
more.
hail Jose.
Yeah, 3 is more than 1 from earlier.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. I keep saying it. I might sound like a broken record, but when there is a Nocturne player in your lobby, it doesn't matter what their HP is until they get that Nocturne 3. And so let's take a look at the scores to see how Jose's win affects it, because we got the complete run back. We got the 8th to the 1st for Jose. Still not enough. Oh, actually, yes, it is enough, as now we have a 3-way tie for 3rd place right now.
Oh boy, and Fear is coming out of nowhere too, sitting in 1st place. As long as you don't choke this next lobby, we could see Fear's back next week. But Boop, I want to tell you who the real MVP is, especially for Jose. It was that Diana, because what hurts Jax the most is CC. And that's why a lot of people actually love Radiant QSS as one of the best Radiant items for Jax, for this exact reason, that 30 seconds buys enough time for Jax to ramp up. And it was the Diana that tossed up the Jax, put the Frozen Heart, slowed down the attack speed, and just ruins Jax's day. And not the last fight, but the fight before that, where that could have been the decider. Remember, it was only one bad loss for Jose, and that could have been him in 2nd. A difference of 2 points, but still a 2nd that you have to write home to mom about.
Yeah, and the thing about it too is... Thanks, Mom. Why do we keep talking about our moms? Anyway,
Okay?
yours didn't take you to preschool, right? Anyway, but the big thing here too is that a lot of people kind of underestimate the amount of CC in that Nocturne comp as well. It's not just Nocturne. Right, a Nocturne gets a lot of that attention, but with Diana and Ivern and Volibear all being in that comp, it's gonna be a trampoline park there sometimes. And during that entire time, you know what's happening? It's the blender, right? With that Nocturne, this time with 2 Hurricanes, and I believe the Last Whisper. So it didn't even need the Infinity Edge that time to win it out. That was admittedly a very Nocturne-friendly lobby. Whenever you see the Jax get 2nd place like that, and you see a Nocturne 3, you're probably going to go the Nocturne 3 route if you're going to be betting. But, Jose still did win that lobby with 3 HP. He was on literally in 8th place the whole time until he wasn't. And was able to kind of stick on like one of those sucker fish that we compare ourselves against, right? On a shark, and eventually got big enough to eat the shark, right? And was able to win that lobby.
There's like a mini game I used to play as a kid that was, the little fish, and it eats all the other fish, becomes the bigger fish.
Yeah, I remember that.
I love evolution. I think that's what Jose did. Just went through evolution from 8th place to 1st place, and all it took was one bad loss. But that's just how good Jose is and how good you need to be at scouting, because there's a certain RNG on which opponent you're going to get. We don't have to go through the speech of, based on how many people are alive, this is the likelihood that you're going to face this person and you don't face the same person, blah, blah, blah. And all of that knowledge, Jose has to keep track of that while also placing items, knowing when to roll, knowing apparently when to open fort, and all of that in between. So Jose's a fast thinker, but he's done this a million times. So playing assassins is second nature.
Yeah, again, a lot of people say the early game is just part of the dance, right? But Jose had 20 gold at round 2-1, right? So we already started the game off with 10 more gold than most people had. Some people don't even hit 10. Most people don't hit 10 gold after these PvE rounds. So mad props for the economy management. And also, we haven't been able to see a lot of it today, but Jose's roll downs are frustratingly good. A lot of the time. So, I mean, that's 2 times Nocturne 3 has appeared. This is the first time it has won. I like the spread of these results a little bit better. Definitely not as consistent, but should be a little scary for the rest of the lobby that Jose did just win that one and has kind of figured it out, especially after it went up against an Aphelios and a Jax that time. No Aphelios. It was the Akshan who never got tier 2. So if that happened, that might have created something different. But I'm super intrigued by Fearsma here and seeing if this is going to be a potential top 3 scenario, because now players have to make choices, right? There's no, I'm still looking for context. If you can't bide your time until, there's no more time, right? You've got to act at some point, and there are definitely some players here, all of our players at 17 points, that really need to decide if they're going to go for a top 4 comp and try to play it safe, or go for the win and leave the destiny in their own hands.
I'm surprised at how quick Fears was to sell that Ashe, because whenever I get any type of Draconic in the neutrals, I think it's safe to just keep Draconic at the back of your mind until the end of stage 2. And now you have like Udyrs popping up. It's fairly easy to find a set. It's those 3-cost Draconics that are hard to get. So I don't think Ranger 2 is that bad of an opener, but very quick to sell that and hope he can get a Callista 2 online, especially with kind of this Rageblade potential slam that could be coming up.
Ooh-wee, Rageblade slams can be such a bait in the early game. Yeah. It seems like such a good idea. Oh, every single time they get more attack speed, but how much attack speed is in the early game? How many auto attacks are you actually getting? Not that much. The reason why it's good on things like Rangers is because with the Ranger buff, after that first cycle of Ranger buffs, by the time it's over, your Ginsus has stacked enough to be very similar to that final attack speed, as it's going to be Titans once more. And we've seen this Titans go on Jax. We've seen that Titans go on Lucian so far. So a couple different places that it can potentially land, is it's going to be a Jeweled Gauntlet as well. So this could still go on the Lucian. But now that we have some AP direction, it might be a little bit different.
It's just when you get a rod, when you're such an
4 items. Sorry.
Just when you're an AD-based player, like sort of Fears has told me, plays AD flex, loves assassins, didn't actually see too much assassins from Fears, but it's just a rod is how do you incorporate that rod? Because there's just not a lot of good rod items to make on an AD comp. That's where a Locket is questionable, not the best tank item, and a Rage Blade is a way you can use a rod. So I was thinking that would have been the direction, but goes for the Titans, where it's that hybrid damage, kind of hybrid damage and defensive, if we think about it. So we get to check in with a Shining Star, who has the Sunfire Slam and a Rage Blade, and decides to put the Kled as the AD carry item holder.
Yeah, this should actually be a pretty nice Kled, especially once he gets off of Skarl. Just so much attack speed just in general, and you want to get to the 3rd attack speed proc. And there it is. Clunched a little bit there. That was pretty close, but I had faith in Mr. Kled.
Did you?
I did.
You kind of screamed a bit.
I did scream, but screaming sometimes isn't a look of a lack of faith. It's a scream in excitement because of the win, right? Said confidently and totally
encouraging.
Not lying. Yeah. Go.
So now you're seeing this MF, and the fact that you have some Forgottens, you're like, The Rage Blade is pretty cute on Misfortune. Would that work? And now goes for the 2 Brawler. Feels pretty good about having the Kled 2-star and making sure that you backline the Kled so he's not the first one to get attention. Wants to get the Sunfire proc first and is going up against Doubtful, who's already level 5 with a similar Cavalier setup.
Oh, this is our first true Spellweaver opening. As well. So Spellweaver's no longer cap. No cap. Sorry. I'm so sorry, everyone. And I like apologize for that one, everybody. But they don't cap anymore. So everyone's going to continuously get stronger each time they ult. As we have a Spatula on the board right now. It's going to be Chewy and Jose, barely actually making that first choice. Remember, only a crit glove was all Jose needed, and Rayo was the one that got it. It looks like. Where's Jose's little dude?
Little dude, it's a little legend dude.
It looks like it's a spatula. Did Jose get the spat? It looks like maybe. And so we also have now the Yasuo here and another Rage Blade that can get built that will also be on the Kled. So true Spider-Man means shenaniganery right now, but the Spellweavers here is going to make this a little bit stronger in the early game. A longer round will mean that this team will win, and the early game tends to have some long rounds.
Yeah, 3 Cav, 2 Spellweaver. And maybe, I guess for Spellweavers, I mean, Ziggs is usually a good first item holder opener just because of how many times he ults and how that Spellweaver trait stacks on him so much due to the amount of times that he ults. But since Kled is 2-star, you already have Cavs online. Kled can do the job just as well. And this looks like a pretty solid win, even against some of the 3 costs that Lurdy has.
Yeah, I mean, the Ziggs, especially with this particular team comp around him, is going to take, you can bet on at least 1 or 2 units falling out, right? Just based off of what kind of ultimate it has. You add like the, buttering him up potential of the brand ult and the Kled, and then the Ziggs ult goes through, you're going to be able to take units down. It's going to be when units get a little bit tankier that 1 ult isn't going to be enough. Right, as it was a spat choice for our friend Jose, who has a Assassin Thresh, which is going to be a Fiddlesticks later, and that's going to be the most powerful version of this Assassin comp that we've seen so far. We do need an extra crit glove now, but it seems like we're going to be a-okay with our open fording as we speak, because Jose was probably a little strong and a little worried, and was able to get that Assassin spat on the Thresh. We're back with Fearsma now, and that Titan's showing its value right now on the Olaf.
Yeah, Olaf, a great 80 item holder. And just going back to that Thresh Assassin comment you were making, it seems like bait to put Thresh Assassin because he jumps at the back. You think, oh, he's going to be able to hook so much more, but he hooks the furthest person, and if you put him closer to backline units, the opposite is going to happen. So you just have to make sure that your Assassin Thresh is going to be in the opposite corner of the backline carry that I assume you're trying to get in this case. But still on Draco, we've seen a few now Kled AD openers, and now with the Hellion 2, extra attack speed is always nice. And no real directions, except Jose, where we always know what direction this is going to be. He's found his first Nocturne.
He has a North Star, right? There is a North Star for Jose, and its name is Nocturne. The blender runs strong for Jose. Draco now going to be at 94 HP, a win streak, only losing out on that first round, and we're going to get 2 karmas. Wow. That is
another one. Wow.
That has got to be the most anticlimactic golden orb I've ever seen in TFT history. 2 karmas.
Hey, that's a lot of gold. I don't know why you're hating from outside the club. So.
We're inside the club, and this 8 gold is popping off right now. No, we've got 20 gold right now for Draco. and 2 Nocturnes. So there was a scout onto Jose's board, and there was a little mouse circle. And one of my funny things is I believe that mouse movement tells a lot of stories when it comes to players. And I think we might be just being a little silly person right now, picking up those Nocturnes and just being a little bit of a against it, because 2 Nocturnes on the bench is something that should frustrate Jose a little bit, as we do sell it off. So we are getting some Nocturne counters right now. Still no Thorn Mails, but at least we're picking up some of those units.
So a 5 streak for Draco, and you're at 94 HP, along with Fears too, but hey, I see no problem with this. I wonder if the Nightbringers hanging around here tell me this could be in Aphelios' direction just because you're holding on to them, as we go and check out with Rayo's board, with the Spellweaver, the Abomination, and you slam the Ionic Spark, so that Abomination is going to bring some MR shred, hopefully making Zig's job easier. Now, the question with this comp is, when does the Ziggs get out? And maybe who could be kind of intermediate item holder? Are we incorporating a Zyra? Can we high roll a Vel'Koz? And at what point do we give up on the Ziggs? Because the Ziggs eventually falls off. Obviously, it's a 1 cost.
It's already kind of fallen off.
Yeah.
So that's it for our rats. When it comes to being able to say, okay, Ziggs, you're going to be able to win this round, no problem, because that is not going to be the case. And this is exactly where you would expect, especially if your brand is still tier 1, to have that Ziggs start falling off. I think best case scenario is the second you get a Vel'Koz, right, is when you're going to be able to take it out. Other than that, with these items, you're kind of locked into an AP comp, right? So Karma would be the other option, but we did just see someone sell 2 of them at round 3-2 for 8 gold instead. That should tell you where Karma is in the meta right now.
And now you're also thinking, okay, he has a set in his shop. He has 2 Gragas's there. Brawler 4 is pretty good of an opener with that kind of that 1,000 HP. You're acting as a Warmogs, but because you have Abomination, you already have an extra frontline unit, so cares more about having Hellion 2 and Spellweaver 2 to empower his only carry, which is the Ziggs. So this Abomination's gonna 1-2 punch the backline of Daofu, who's still running Hellions, and Rayo's doing a lot of win-loss, which isn't ideal for his eco, but obviously losing less HP than if he were to just lost streak. So there's a silver lining somewhere in win-lossing like that.
I mean, it depends how hard you're looking for that silver lining at the end of the day. You can find a silver lining anywhere if you're looking hard enough. But Jose, this is by far the best assassin game he has had so far, and maybe that might be a little bit of a tricky thing to handle. We have been so low in HP at this point in time. Once we were under 20 HP, but this is almost perfect. We're actually around late when it comes to wanting to see our Stimmy pop up. We would have actually really liked to have about 40 HP right now. I know that's where Jose likes to see it, so he can make all of his final decisions after this NPC round, but it's going to be an assassin literally to start until we find the Fiddlesticks, which is one of the most important parts of this entire concept of a comp, and it's going to be pretty brutal to deal with because those crits on that ult are going to be pretty massive.
I love watching Jose play because he gives a PowerPoint presentation on who he thinks he's going to face. Thought it was a Vel'Koz, ended up being right. And it's Chewy on the other side, who still has Draconics going, I believe.
Wow.
He has some pretty good eggs on them. We haven't seen too much Draconic. And that Vel'Koz 1, still living, gets CC'd by the Pike. And here comes the rest of the assassins to finish the job. So Jose is celebrating the fact that he has this much HP before stage 4.
Seriously, this is the most I've seen him have before this time, I think in like 3 weeks, which is pretty crazy to say. Chewy, someone after my own heart. I've lost a lot of LP playing that comp. Now that we have the big eggs about to crack, that's when we'll make some of our decisions. Ooh. We're going to get our Radiant item, which is going to be the RFC, and we know how much Jose likes it. We're going to keep the Zeeks and the Last Whisper on the Nidalee. We don't need to sell it just yet. We will not sell that Nidalee until the Fiddlesticks comes to say hello. But yeah, I like Chewy's, he's running a little bit of a drag race. Get it? Get it?
RuPaul's?
Drag iconic.
RuPaul's? Oh, not that one. Okay,
Sorry.
wrong one then.
Sorry.
My bad.
I forgot to take my funny drugs today.
The Bennies?
Yeah, the Benadryls, yeah.
Benadryl. Okay, I gotta make sure I clarify.
Yeah,
before I get fired.
I talked about the ragweed earlier, remember. It has been absolutely brutal. Ragweed and me are not getting along right now. As this Nocturne is going to be mostly safe and is going to be really good against the Nidalees now, where all of that advantage is going to be taken away. And that's so much attack speed just by having those two bows on, or not even just two bows, having the Radiant RFC.
Yeah, and Jose kind of immediate decision to go to the Radiant RFC. That's the best Radiant item for Nocturne. And then there's arguments for Hurricane and other things like that. But there was also Radiant Thief's Gloves, and that's something he's used before on Diana. He loves to put Thief's Gloves on Diana because she can utilize anything from mana to AP to tank. Very versatile.
I can't believe he just did
But
that.
obviously cares more about this Nocturne. Finds the Fiddlesticks.
And the Ivern.
Assassin Spat is on it. He is going for Assassin 6 and the Revenant at the end, and already has 3 of them. And it was absolutely a huge power spike for Jose to get Revenants in general because he didn't have it before this point. And this allows this Nocturne to resurrect. And the more Revenants you have, the more HP that you do resurrect with. Now, I wonder what this last item is going to be. He's got more tiers than maybe he would like, but usually he puts his tier items on a Diana, or you can put it on some kind of intermediate person until your Viego comes around.
All right, so we're getting into the nitty-gritty of what this lobby is going to end up being. Whenever you hit 4142, that's when the final team comps do start coming into play. We have the Rascals gloves, if you will. Really great roll on that with the locket and the trap claw. So everyone going to be benefiting from that. And Abominations love these kind of Radiant items because on the Rascals gloves, because they're going to be able to use a Radiant item twice, right? And you're going to be able to utilize that. Unfortunately, those particular Radiant items, good for a team, not necessarily on the Abomination, as we still haven't gotten out of our 4 brawler setup just yet. This is definitely wanting to be that Vel'Koz. Oh my god, you ask and you shall receive, as the Vel'Koz pops out Abomination comp that seems to be rocketing up a lot of tier lists right now.
So now what are you making? So there's a world where you can justify the loaded dice if you're really looking for a certain unit. And I think because he has the Vel'Koz 1, and a Nico, he's okay with just needing to find one more. And the Radiant Thief's Gloves, and also that Rhea was looking at Chewy like, I am so jelly right now. I'm so jealous of your board because Chewy is running exactly what Rhea wants to run with the Heimer and Vel'Koz that he got before. Ends up putting and slamming the IE instead of doing anything with the vest that was on the Nunu. Completely backlines his team. And this might be difficult because I think their backs are going to be put against the wall, and you need to kill a few units before the Abomination comes out. But they're all nicely lined up for this Vel'Koz to just shred them.
Oh man, sometimes all you need is a Vel'Koz ult. You know, it doesn't matter what your position. Never punished, right? Sometimes you're just not punished with that positioning, as Jose has the Nocturne that he really loves to have, which is Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, and Radiant RFC. Whew, man, I feel like we might be talking to Jose again a little bit later. We'll see if that team comp is gonna pop up where it is. It's gonna land at exactly 40 HP with that Radiant Blessing. We're gonna start rolling for some of those units, particularly that Nocturne 3. Definitely take note of that on your HP totals on the right, as we're rolling for a couple things right now, but not a lot of direction.
Am I silly, or is this Radiant Thief's Gloves always getting this Trap Claw and Locket? I feel like it's
the second time.
Yeah, and that's pretty good. It just forces him to backline his team, so he's maximizing the value of this Locket, but yeah, pretty lucky, I guess.
And maximizing the potential damage from the Nocturne comp as well. This one's going to be a little bit better, as, look, it's going to be the Shroud and the Morellos for the Irelia Rascals gloves for Fears. And another good Vel'Koz ultimate might bring the victory over to Rayo. We do need another ult because the Jax is going to start eating through these units. Enough on the Bloodthirster? Answer is no. Jax 2, though, might have been able to take that dub.
Yeah, I think the Jax can win it if you can just position him not in the diagonal lanes of the Vel'Koz, but you also need your frontline to survive and be more of a distraction until the Jax can 1v5. But we're getting closer. We're stage 4 carousel. Everyone is still alive. And we'll go and check in with Doubtful, where the last time we saw him, it was early game. He had the Rage Blade Sunfire Slam. And we'll get to find out kind of how this board ended up in a second.
Yeah, Hodge probably going on to the Vel'Koz. I saw the tier on Doubtful's board. All of a sudden, it's a Vel'Koz, lobby, right? And this is why when people are like, but the meta says this is good, and you go into a tournament and it doesn't match. Again, these 8 players decide the meta for this lobby, right? In lobby 1, Draven got second, and we haven't seen Draven again since that point in time, right? So as we're going to get a Rel, that's going to be really nice for this this Stibby being pretty friendly to our friends Daofu and Jose. No, not Jose, as someone else got the Vel'Koz. It was Rayo.
Yeah, these are awkward items. A Rage Blade and a Radiant GA, which helps out in attack speed. And he has so many different carries on his bench. And Ophelia, Solution. He had a Vel'Koz at some point. It was really about maybe which one he was going to 2-star and which direction he could go in after that. Lands on the Draven, slams a Hodge, as you said. And this will be good for now. And you only have the Legionnaire too. No Forgottens to boost up this Draven. And he's doing okay for now, as long as his Galio can carry him through to success.
Yeah, I mean, my gut is telling me that this Draven's just holding items for Kayle. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
Again, I see Hodge, I think Kayle at this point in time. By far, one of the best carriers of that item. It kind of reminds me of I think Diana is going to get Frozen Heart nerfed, just specifically, because it's so good on Diana. And I think it could be the case with some units and items like Hodge, as this one gonna be a rough go of it. Jewel Gauntlet and Runan's pretty good on the Abomination, but that's gonna make it a little less tanky, and the tankier Abomination seem to be doing a little bit better right now. Really intrigued if the Jewel Gauntlet roll goes on it to see how much extra damage it gets after that ultimate. But we're still trying to figure things out here, as it's going to be the karma because we weren't close to that Vel'Koz too. I like that decision. We are at a point in time where we need to push for the win, and this is going to give us the best opportunity for our board. Yeah, we've been memeing on karma this entire time, but you never know. It's random targeting, and these are good items.
The issue with Karma is that she just never finishes off units, and she's always the first to die, especially when I play her. So she's just kind of reminds me of an egg. Eggs are great, but they crack and they break easily and they make a mess, just like this Karma. So looks like Rayo will be taking an L here, and although the decision seemed right to go for a 2-star, Vel'Koz might still be the more consistent carry at the end of the day to go for, as we get to 2-star the Gallo here on Fear's board. We have the Stimmy, we're at Chickens. And I love the Radiant Thieves Gloves on Irelia. She's my favorite carrier by far for it.
I mean, item agnostic. There are a couple truly item agnostic users in the game. I don't think Irelia is a true item agnostic carrier, especially since AP doesn't work quite as nicely on her. But you're totally right. When you kind of take just those AP items out and you think of all the other things that the Rascals Loves can roll, Irelia is going to benefit from a lot of them. Let's see what this roll is going to be. For example, right, this roll's amazing for Irelia. Not only are you going to be protecting your front line, you're also going to be enabling some of your team by shredding that magic resist. And you're going to have the Garen to do the same thing. So I guess your Galio could do the damage. There's no actual AP damage, but there's going to be a lot of MR shred. So I wonder if we're going to try to sneak some in, as we have 3 Nocturnes on the board right now. Two on the board, 1 in the pack for Fears. Again, people are starting to be afraid of Jose because we have a lot of HP right now. Jose can actually lose a round and not get eliminated at 5-1. That's crazy.
And I'm not sure if Jose even has hit Nocturne 3, and this tells me maybe he hasn't, the fact that people are still trying to block Nocturnes, but it's quite a decent amount of them in the board. And when I've talked to Jose, he doesn't really care if somebody contests him, because at the end of the day, he's told me they're the ones going 8, not him. So, and So we'll see if that block will be enough to slow down Jose, because Fears is doing good after that win. Still needs to work on his streak, but his board is looking really good.
Yo, we got a Riven player in the lobby, my friend. In 8th place. Lurdius at 6 HP did just get the Riven 3. We'll see if that's going to be enough. Riven 3, I don't use this term very often when it comes to patch notes, but Riven 3 did get neutered. Straight up.
Yeah.
Just lost kind of a lot of damage. But we'll see if it's going to be able to do a little bit more tanking for that team comp in particular. Again, the lobby is very close, especially with Jose climbing back up. This should be a pretty good look into what the potential can be. And again, like, oh, nice thresh hook, but the Nocturne does not get affected by that Shroud, right? So completely useless against this particular team. We're going to get that Fiddlesticks ult off before we fall, and the crits will start happening. This is becoming a little bit of an issue. We're getting stuck on a couple of these units, and again, Nocturne can get stuck on Ironclads, can get stuck on units with Thornmail, for example. Shining Star, you're a star. Gonna be going up against Daofu, and that's gonna mean that this Kayle had like 1 or 2 extra auto attacks to beat Daofu there, as that was pretty close.
I was really curious about what happened to Shining Star, because we saw him at the very start where like 1 million people had the Kled AD item holder and, you know, had pretty good success, but has since found a Kayle, and with the Radiant GA with that extra attack speed is perfect for Kayle. Maybe you prefer a Radiant Hodge if we're being picky. And I also wanted to point out that Jose only has 4 Nocturnes and needs 9 to 3-star the Nocturne, and is still winning without needing the 3-star Nocturne. So people are sacrificing their eco to slow down a pain train that is still running.
Okay, so we have Karma, IE, with the JG. So those are always going to crit. Karma is good against Kayle. This might be a Karma win here. It looking like it. We finally do get to the Kayle. Random targeting can actually wreck units like Vel'Koz and Kayle. But again, Karma's so good at almost killing you. Right? It always feels like she leaves 10 or 20 HP, and it takes so long to get to your triple soul flare again. But this is going to be, you know, almost half of these are emblems, and it's going to be a Cav emblem for Draco. Where's Fear's going to go? Going to be the did he get the Shroud?
Invoker. I'm surprised not a lot of people are fighting for this Spellweaver spat, especially for these Vel'Koz players. It's always so nice to get rid of like a Ziggs, like a poo-poo one cost for something better. Like you throw it on
I
a
see you
fiddle
bringing
or a
out the
Galio.
technical terms now.
Yeah, poo-poo.
Yeah. That's in the TFT book for what you're describing. I remember.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out how many people have single-digit HP. Rayo was like this close to going out in 7th, and now he's potentially fighting for a top 4 or bottom 4. This next round is going to be knocking out a lot of people.
Remember, too, friends, that 3 people are tied for 3rd place right now. So however you finish here is probably going to be where you finish in the final standings. Of course, there are some outliers, but people like Chewy, people like Jose, they absolutely need to finish in the top 3 to give themselves an opportunity. We have the Vel'Koz finally from Chewy. Nice Zephyr. Beautiful Zephyr as well. And I think this Thresh is going to hit the cannon, or the turret, and that's not going to be that good for them. Nice Vel'Koz ult going through our Rascal's gloves. Oh, look at the Timo ult with the Heimerdinger ult to follow right after, and it's still not quite enough. The Jax going through. Again, if that was a Jax too, I think Fears is still in this game. Probably top 4s, but Draco going back to Hogwarts in 5th place. 9. Actually, very, very fun name. The V stands for the Roman numeral 5, right, Lemon? Which is another symbol for Phoenix. And so maybe Draco on the next go-around here in Fight Night Rising can rise like that Phoenix and finish in the top 4 next time. I did see some potential there. I also did see maybe some nerves. The most intentional players are going to be the ones that do the best a lot of the time. Hashtag Jose. And, you know, and I think that's been the case here as well. Because again, the longer you take to make that first decision, the shorter you have to make the following decisions, right? So intention is just so important.
And 3 people got knocked out in that last round, as I was mentioning. Just no man's land. Now we're left with our top 4, and Rayo, who I thought was going out in 7th, has inched his way into the top 4. And this is the final lobby, guys. So we're gonna find out at the end of the day how that, would you say, like a huge tiebreaker is going to define this. You have 2 Zeeks empowering this Nocturne if you're Jose. Rayo falls to 4th, and
that's a Diana
the amount
3
of utility. Oh yeah,
that was a Diana 3. Oh, my friends, I apparently do not have eyes, because that is a Diana 3 with 2 Zeeks and a Chalice on it. I think I've only seen Diana 3 maybe 2 or 3 other times total, but that ult, if Diana ult, it's over, right? For anyone that's going to be in there. Plus, you've got the Zeeks compensating for the lack of a Nocturne
10
3.
streak.
Yeah, so we've got a 10 streak, and we'd call this a Nocturne comp, but I'm ready to say this is a Diana comp right now.
I had said Diana low-key the MVP last round when she had the frozen heart and she CC'd the Jax, which I think would have been this close to knocking Jose in second, but took the round from good positioning. And kind of unfortunate that you got an Archangel staff and you're going to throw down Fiddle. He's going to be your holder for AP items. And we saw that as soon as he had the Assassin spat, not deciding to go Assassin 6, which I think would have been a better capped out board, but maybe having issues finding, was he missing like a Viego? Either way, he's not missing anything. He's on a 10 streak. Who cares about 6 Assassin? He is ruining people's days. Only 3 units left on his opponent's side. And he's curious on how this Kayle board is doing as he takes now his 11th win of the last lobby.
He's going to have no problem against that Kayle board, to be completely honest with you. Man, Shining Star, these Kayles have just been playing the best game of hide and seek I have ever seen Kayle play. No, like we never see the Kayle pop up. It's like when you're not playing Kayle, you only see Kayle in your packs, right? But when you are playing Kayle, you will never find it. That's just how TFT works. It's like the Mort God understands that he needs to frustrate you and hide Kayle away from you. I like the Galio, but I do also like the decision to take it out so we can have our Revenants go forward, so we can get a little bit of extra damage because now we're at Revenant 4. With this Nocturne, because again, we're very far away from Nocturne 3 that I don't know if we need, especially with this Diana.
This Nocturne just sat on that Teemo too. Doesn't even need Nocturne 3-star. He usually gets that every lobby, but he went from Assassin 4 to Assassin 6, incorporating the Kha'Zix and the Viego, the last pieces of this puzzle as he knocks out Shining Star, and it's Jose versus Chewy for the win in the last lobby. And I'll give you guys one guess on who you think is gonna win. The 12 streak guy or the, was that 3 HP, 7 HP? 7. I have glasses on, by the way. But or who's gonna win? 12 streak or the 7 HP?
Don't know your animals, don't know your numbers. Man, we just got to get you back.
Dude, those pixels, I don't know what letter that is. I'm just saying.
Yeah, those letter totals at the side there. But anyway, this is potentially the last fight of our fight night today, going into a big NA tournament through giantslayer. It's going to be a LAN, which is super cool. But yeah, we have the Vel'Koz going through, takes down the Diana immediately, absolutely shreds through it. But it is going to be the Nocturne that is going to win out the day. There it is. Nocturne once again wins out. Nocturne
Chewy just wanted to give him a kiss goodbye. And it sucks when you just have your little legend running across the board like, no. But
that's Jose going to first place again.
Jose started from the bottom. Now he's here in first place, but he wasn't in a top 4 spot on the leaderboard before this lobby. Will that 10-point win be enough to get him a re-invite into the next fight night? That's what really matters, because it is historical what Jose has been able to do in fight night with the amount of wins. And here's your leaderboard. Get your drum rolls ready. Is Jose coming back? And he is 27 points and first place.
1 point victory over Shining Star, who is the person they eliminated in that round. So if Shining Star finished in second that game, we would be talking to Shining Star later, but Jose actually takes destiny in their own hands, eliminates Shining Star from the 4th lobby, and ends up winning because of that. That's pretty crazy. But unfortunately, Dowfu not going to be returning next week. Did get the lobby win in the first lobby with, I believe that was Kayle. And, Kayle top 4 a couple times, but completely got rid of the Kayle plan. And if there was a day to run Kayle a couple times, I think that might have been today. But Dowfu not going to be coming back. Chewy with a good last lobby. You love to see it. Lurdy and Draco also having, everyone having at least a top 4, it looks like.
And especially Shining Star. I mean, look at that consistency of having 3 top 4s out of the 4 lobbies. So, of course, that's why he got second place. But being a newer player to Fight Night and, not one that was reinvited back this week, is going to be coming back next week along with Jose. And hey, speaking of Jose, I hear we have him coming up for an interview soon. I'm
very intrigued to see what we're going to talk about because, we're just good friends at this point. He comes up on these interviews so frequently. Jose, are you there?
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, and welcome back. We're going to be best friends by the end of at least a couple more fight nights. So, Jose, once again, Nocturne brings you the victory, but I want to get your kind of feelings on that 8th place. It's been a while since we felt that way in Fight Night. Was that just like a super low roll game for you? And how were you feeling after that? Did you think that you were going to be talking to us again after that second game?
Yeah, not gonna lie, after that 8th, I thought my streak was over. And the 3 people leveled to 5 at 2-2. I was down to FF. I was taking 10 damage in stage 2 every round. It was actually BG. I'm pretty sure that 8th was that was that was a speed run to 8th, honestly. That might have been my fastest 8th.
Yeah, we'll see you on GDQ next. We'll just submit that as your play. Jen, you got anything for a winner?
Yeah, oh my god, we were so happy for you that you had more than 20 HP in stage 4, and I'm sure that felt extra good for you, right? I always get so stressed watching you, and you didn't even hit 3-star Nocturne. Can you tell me how important, is it really that important to get a 3-star Nocturne? Because you won without it, but consistently you usually go for that 3-star Nocturne, but people were blocking you this lobby, it felt like.
Yeah, I was counting, I think 3 people at least held 2 Nocturnes. So if I told myself, if I keep my streak through stage 4, I just push levels. And then I somehow natural Diana 3, so I was like, okay, I guess we're going 9 after hitting Diana 3. So that became my new win con. And yeah, I think that separates me from other Nocturne players. I won't roll down at 7 if everyone's holding my units, so I'll just try to make the best out of a bad situation.
Yeah, and Nocturne got some hate in this recent patch, right, Boop, of getting a few nerfs. And I was kind of talking to you before the show on, okay, is Nocturne still good? You were maybe hesitant, but you still force Nocturne every round. Can you kind of break down for me the changes to Nocturne or just how much that's affected its power level? I mean, you still did well without it, but has it changed your mind about Nocturne at all?
Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure 5 AD nerf on Nocturne is 40 AD at tier 3, so it is quite a big nerf. But in my mind, I was just no one positions for assassin players, so I'm just gonna keep playing it and hope for the best, see if it actually mattered. And after that 8th, I thought it mattered because I went 8th, so. But yeah, it was fun.
So what was so funny about what you just said is literally the first thing I said today was, are we finally going to get a lobby that positions against assassins? Because it seems like most people kind of forget you're there until it's the final 1v1, right? And today's lobby, from lobby 1, people were doing a little bit more against you, I've noticed. But for our last question, man, and I'm actually really curious about this, is what are you more proud of? The dominant Fight Night Rising victories that you've had in previous weeks, or this particular victory, coming back from the bottom? Because it might be a little bit more emotional, but probably more emotionally tiring going through today. What performance are you more proud of?
Definitely this one. After that second game, I thought, well, I guess I'm not coming back next week, but I don't even know how I managed to win the 3rd game. The 4th game was, I thought I was in a really good spot, but that 3rd game was I think that was the sweatiest game I've played in all of Fight Night, because I got a Zephyr from Carousel, so I was just trying to Zephyr cheese their front line and try to outposition my opponents, which actually definitely made a difference in those last fights. But I'm very happy with. I'm a lot happier with this week than any other week. It was really fun.
I was curious. My last question was the chalice that you had. I know you had a few extra tiers than you would have liked in that last lobby.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what you were going to end up doing with it. And I know Nocturne got some AP scaling, and I know people don't really build towards AP, but does chalice make a difference for Nocturne, or is this just something you had to do because you had that many tiers?
Oh, it's just something I had to do. I was gonna burn both tiers, like go chalice and then go frozen heart on next Carol, but someone took the chain, so I just said, okay, I guess I have to slam chalice, and then play around the other tier, and it just ended up being a dead tier anyway. So I definitely prefer like that slight extra damage rather than like blue buffing a potential Viego. So because it also benefits Diana, it's an extra one less auto for Diana before she casts.
Oh,
and
interesting.
AP scaling because I was also putting fiddlesticks alongside them, so yeah.
Interesting. I'm taking notes.
But last but not least, where can we find you before we sign off here? You've done this before. I know you've got a list of people to thank. So let's do it again, my friend.
Oh yeah, let's do it again. Okay. Shout out. Thank you everybody for tuning in this morning. Thanks for GV8 and Nubal for rating me, and thank you to Murray, Yenwei, Araye, Kix. Oh my God, they're all spamming in chat. Phoenix, Avamon, Bridie, Geo, Norimon, Only One, Dog, Ash, Sushi Boy, Fan Build, K3U, Mr. Ding, Vi, Ryo, Grimmy, and my boy Carlos. He's single, guys. Go follow him on Twitter.
I'm so dead.
Oh, and Marco. All right. Yeah, that was a long list, but thanks for giving me that opportunity.
Of course, always a pleasure. You have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a good week as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was Jose. You're here watching Fight Night Rising, aka the Jose Assassin Fan Club, where they're all spamming in chat. Yeah, I support assassins, forcing it or not, and especially when you get that dominant of a first place at the end. All hail Jose. This is a Jose stream now.
Yeah. One detail. I thought that this record would never be beat, but I believe this is now... He'll be coming back for his 9th week next week. And we have had one person ever since set 1 come back in double-digit weeks. It was Gunmay, and I believe it's 13. So it's like 11, 12, or 13. I'm going to have to go back and check. But we're getting really close to a record I thought would never be touched. So we'll see what happens. If we keep playing Nocturne, I think, and it keeps happening, I think it could potentially happen. It might fall.
Happening as much as our brain cells happen sometimes, but we try our best. Boop and I and Crone will be back next week, but I really appreciate Fight Night Rising for having me on. This is a great opportunity, especially to put a spotlight on the upcoming TFT talent. I get to cast and do shenanigans with my best friends, so this is always a fun time, and what a fun day again of Fight Night. You know, Assassins, Resident Sleeper, or PogChamp, whatever camp you're in, I'm always part of the Jose fan club, and we got a lot of variety in comps at the end of the day.
We sure did, and I mean those first 2 lobbies, the top 4 on each had 4 different comps. I think we saw 6 or 7 comps get top 4 today. We not a ton of spatulas. The game is still in a fluid state. A lot of things can still work, but that Nocturne seems to still be the most consistent lobby winner at Fight Night Rising.
Well, that's all we have for you guys for Fight Night Rising. That's Boopasaurus. I'm LemonKiwi, and he will see you next week.